try to get more. G'day everybody, welcome to Pints with Aquinas. I have a big giveaway that I'm doing this month to try to get more support for the channel and all that we plan on doing this year. You've probably seen this Pints with Aquinas beer stein. This month, January, and this month only, we will be giving this beer stein away for free to anybody who becomes an annual supporter over at mattfradd.locals.com. When you join mattfradd.locals.com right now, you'll get access to free audiobooks, exclusive podcasts. You'll have the ability to ask my guests questions. You'll also get access to our quarterly newspaper that's sent to your front door called The Jill. And we even pay the shipping for that one, by the way, whether you live in Australia or wherever. So we're really excited about that. We have a lot of big things coming up this year that I can't yet reveal, but it's going to cost a lot of money. And so one of the ways to make sure that we can do these things is by your support, quite frankly. So please become a local supporter. Sign up on your desktop or laptop, not on your phone, please. When you do that, we'll have a pinned post to the top of Locals showing you how to get this free beer stein. And again, this free beer stein is only for people who become annual supporters in January. You just have to pay shipping, but we'll send it wherever. So if you live in Europe or Australia or China, we can send it there to you as well. Huge thank you. I think Locals is actually social media. It's kind of what social media should have been, but never became. So when you join us over on Locals, you're not just getting those free perks that I spoke about. You're also joining a online community of like-minded Catholics who kind of give each other the benefit of the doubt and ask for prayers and share their struggles. It's been really quite beautiful. So thank you to those who would consider supporting mattfradd.locals.com. And if you can't do that, you could at least subscribe. So please subscribe, hit the bell button. Thanks so much. Hey, when we're live. All right. So Shayne Smith, it's nice to have you on the show.
It's very nice to be here. Very, very nice.
So honestly, the first thing I want to know is what was it like opening for Norm Macdonald? You threw that out there like...
Yeah, I did. Like it was no big deal. Opening for Norm was incredible. Norm is one of the funniest people alive. He was one of the funniest people alive. He's gone now. He's alive in my heart. I'll tell you that. Sometimes I text his old number. Oh. Just random things. Like he truly was so important to me. So I got to open for him by happenstance. I used to be a paid regular at my home club in Wise Guys, which is Salt Lake City, Utah. So sometimes headliners come through and they have no one with them to open, and then one of the locals gets the shot. And so I got to be the one. I'm losing my mind. I get to be the one. A lot of the times you don't get to talk to the headliner. They're just not interested, or they're tired, or they don't want to be social, which I get. And so he was not that. He was get into the green room with me, hang out, so kind. And he did this whole bit where the owner of the club comes in and he goes, "Hey, I don't have my jokes. I need a pen. Can you go get me a pen?" And the owner of the club is like, "Oh my God, yeah, I guess." And so he goes and gets him a pen and he goes, "I need a piece of paper for the pen. I need a piece of paper." And the owner is like, "Really?" He's like, "Are you being serious?" He's like, "No, I genuinely don't have paper to write my set down." And so he goes and gets paper. And then he goes, "I don't have, do you have a stool I can like write on?" And the owner is literally like, "Okay." And he goes and gets a stool. So then he sets this piece of paper down on the stool and he has his pen and he's in front of all of us and he goes, "Now if I just had jokes." It was the best. That's how funny he was. Just for no one, just to us three guys in there. Yeah. But I opened for him. He was super gracious, super cool, liked my comedy, and then invited me to dinner with him afterwards.
What?
Yeah, it was incredible. Paid for my dinner, took me to like this fancy restaurant.
I need you to slow this bit down now. I want to know everything.
Oh yeah.
Where did you go? What's it like?
We went to Ruth's Chris, which is a steakhouse that I think is like a chain or whatever. Yeah. But in Utah, we don't have a lot going on, so that was it. We went there, and we were the friend of his, and he was just like so genuinely kind and cool. People would be like, "I feel like I know you. You're like famous, right?" And he'd be like, "I don't know what you're talking about," like doing it. And he would just so humble, like just talk to me about life, talk to me about comedy, talk to me about open mics, and just things that are like so far beyond him. He's so clearly like a comics comic. Do you know what I mean? A person who, and he was incredibly present with me, and just like, I have a problem where I am able to engage someone but not be present. So I could be on my phone and engage. And so I have a bad habit of not being totally present with people, which I think is a flaw, and I'm trying really hard to solve that. But he had all of my focus, right? And he was just the best. And I had all of his. It was crazy, a crazy experience. Then the next night he invited me out again. So kind of me.
How does he invite you out?
He literally is just like, we're going to eat. Are you coming with?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, like, and there are other people with us that he didn't invite. Like, he's specifically being kind to me, which is like, so the comic, you know, like he treated me like an equal, despite the fact that I was like this opener, this young, hungry guy doing like 15 minutes to open for him. And so cool. And then before we left, I would like follow him around like a puppy dog, you know, like, is it okay if I hang out while you drink or whatever, you know, at the club. And so nice to me. And then before he left, he goes, what's your phone number? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I want your phone. Give me your phone number. And because I was like blown away. I thought he was doing a bit. And I gave him my number, and then he like texted me. I've had lots of popular comics whose names I won't mention kind of be cool after a show, or like, I have a note for you. Give me here, text, here's my number, text me or whatever. And then they never reply to you again for the rest of your life. And like, it's cool that they tried, but they got busy. They got a text and they just didn't care, or they decided later, like, I don't even know what I was going to say or whatever. And they don't even give you the time of day, which is fine. Whatever. You're famous. I'm me. But Norm messaged me back. Norm would just be like, how are you? How's it going lately? You know, like, not comedy related stuff. I'm nobody to this guy. He was so cool. He would randomly ask you questions. Like, he asked me if I believed in God once. Just randomly.
What did you say
reason.
at the time?
At the time, I was like, I used to say this, and looking back, it's kind of dorky. I used to say I'm an 8 of 10 atheist. And he goes, so yes. Yeah, so yes. And I go, I guess. And he goes, agnostic. And I go, I suppose. And at the time, I'm like resisting God, because if God exists, the implication is that he wants something from you. He has expectations of you as a person. And that's terrifying, and also sounds like work, you know, and people don't want to work. And I also didn't want to work. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you ever ask him for advice? So like, what did you think of my show?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
how did that go?
It went well. I mean, he gave me like regular advice, you know, hey, you're looking, you looking down, you should look up, you should perform to the, you know, just like notes. Nothing profound. I don't think I needed it at the time.
It takes humility to offer advice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think it's a false humility. Yeah, just turn that off or turn it around.
Yeah.
It's a false humility to pretend that you're not good at what you do.
Yeah.
You know, but when you go, okay, no one's perfect and I'm not as good as I could be, but I do have something to offer and I'm happy to offer it. Like that shows humility, I think.
I think it does. And the fact that he didn't try to like, sometimes I've asked comics a question or been like, what do you think about this? Or what about this joke? Or what do you think about stage presence? Just talking shop. Yeah. And comics will begin to philosophize or just like be grandiose. I wonder if I'm guilty of this. If I am, I cringe to think of another open micer thinking of a time that I gave them advice and I was like too heady or whatever. I'm sure I've done it. Ugh. But he was not that. He was like, he gave me what I needed and that was it. He was so interested in just being a dude, talking to me as like a human being, which is wildly invaluable. Especially when you look up to someone and they're so important to you. And I never really geeked out and was like, I've watched everything you've ever done on SNL and all of your movies and all of your stand-up, like, you know, but
you can criticize what I'm about to say, and I feel bad doing it because the man is dead, and I pray for his soul. He seemed like a beautiful man. But I was listening to some of his comedy driving back from Seek, and so much of it is perverse and sexual and gross.
Yes.
And in a way, because he's so lovable and charming, it made it even grosser. And whenever he was just sort of deadpan and dad jokey and dry, he was so beautiful and lovable. I wish he never veered into that direction.
Were you hearing stand-up that was really gross? Or were
Some
you hearing
stand-up,
just like him on other shows talking to people and dealing with things?
No, because I think when he was on late night shows, there's some level of please don't be talking about deep sexual things here. So he didn't do it then. But maybe there was some stand-up that I listened to that I was like, oh, this is so disappointing. But it's kind of like he's not a friend of mine, but you become friends with somebody, right? And then once you're friends, you give them the benefit of the doubt.
True.
Maybe it's like that.
I would give him the benefit of the doubt. I just think he was a comic, and like I've done a lot of gross stuff, and I've done stuff that's gross that I'm like, what was I doing? Especially now at this stage of my life. I think over the last 2 years, I've kind of like stepped back and tried to reevaluate comedy and what I want it to be. And like I've deleted a lot of stuff over the years that I've done that I'm like, what was I? What? Why was I doing that? So maybe some of that for him. But also when I saw him live, he was doing almost entirely stuff about like history. It's very morbid, very funny, very weird. So I never got we didn't talk about anything sexual at all when I was with him. He didn't really ask me about girls or anything. We were just a lot of philosophy, a lot of just life and comedy and like friendships and relationships and like what we think about other comics and how we view things. I don't know. It was awesome. We talked about addiction a lot. I think he was addicted to gambling. And so I think he had a friend there with him to kind of keep him in check. He also didn't drink alcohol when I was with him. I don't know if he was sober. So he might have been working on all that. And this is probably around the time maybe he wasn't going through treatment, but he had been diagnosed with something. It was quite a while ago. And he never told me anything about his sickness. He just died. Like one day I was like, he's not dead. And I like messaged him and he was dead. So I was like, what a G, Yeah. I was diagnosed with cancer once and it was false.
Okay. But it would have wrecked you, I'm sure.
Yeah, it would have been bad. But I mean to
be told that news would have wrecked you despite whether it was happening.
I was told. So I didn't tell anybody. I just told three really important people in my life and just waited and kind of was like, am I going to tell anybody? So I kind of see where he's coming from.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing, man.
Yeah. So he was a great guy.
Now you and I met at the Seek conference.
We did,
and it was just amazing.
How funny that worked out.
So here's how our relationship began. I get an Instagram message, which I rarely check, and you said, well, why don't you say it? So
I said that
pints had helped.
I'm in the process of converting. I found God, and through that I found pints, and it's just like been such a blessing and a resource. And I just thanked you.
So I wrote back and went, I think I said something like, thank God. Like I was really gratified to hear that.
You were very kind.
But then Thursday, our producer here is like, I was in the back end of Instagram. Do you have any idea who this guy is? I'm like, not really. It's like, we need to get him on the show.
That's so funny.
And that's when I started listening to your things. My kids love you. We were driving back from Seek and I was playing the bit about you pooping your pants. My daughter was in hysterics. Never a homeless guy around when you need him.
Dude,
that's very good.
That's one of my favorite bits of all time because I never wrote it. It was not written. It really happened. I was on the way to a show. I got on stage after pooping my pants, said what I say, and it never changed. Like, that's the easiest bit I've ever done.
You didn't have to craft it, chisel bits away.
I didn't write it.
Just as it was.
I never wrote it. It just happened.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it really happened.
But yeah, all that is to say, you've got a real gift that you've obviously worked really hard at, and everyone I know here in Steubenville agrees. So
oh man, yeah, that's awesome.
Does that make you feel gross when I say that?
No. I have a really hard time taking compliments of any kind.
Yeah, me too.
It's tough. I don't know how to graciously do it because I so badly want to be humble. I think it's unmanly to be boastful or to be like, like that's for girls. That's a girl boss quality, which I think is fine. I actually love a confident woman, like a woman who's like, yeah, I nailed it.
I love what you said, because I said, I don't know if we were talking about relationships or something, and you said, I need a woman who fills up a room.
Yeah. I like when a woman takes up space.
That's what you said. I love that so much. Yeah.
I love that.
My wife's like that.
You
feel her presence. Mother Natalia is like
Mother
that.
Natalia fills up your wife spoke at Seek, a conference with like thousands. She filled the room.
Yeah.
Very funny too.
So this is your first Catholic conference, presumably.
First anything even remotely like that. Yeah.
And you show up 22,000 Catholics. What was the experience like?
It was great. I've had a lot of as I began to get interested in Christianity, and then I was like, this is happening to me. It's not something I chose. It just happened. You know what it's just real, and it is what it is. And so I began to become very worried about how Christians were going to treat me, or how they would perceive me or think about me, or maybe they would be weird or not trust me, or I don't know. You just have all these weird insecurities, especially as a guy who looks like I do. I've had weird insecurities my whole life. And so it's been so completely and totally and viscerally the opposite. No community I've ever encountered has ever been so gracious and loving and kind, and everything that you hear about in the news or that people say or experiences I've had, none of it matches anything I've ever been told. And then going to this conference was just like so many people who had no idea who I was. They didn't know my comedy. They didn't know what I was doing there. And I was by myself, and like they would just walk up and be like, what are you up to? What are you doing here? Do you have friends around? Like, but not in a way like, who are you?
Like,
what are you doing?
Yeah.
But because I'm clearly have a badge, I'm there. But just to be like, you want to eat lunch with us? Do you want to hang out? How are you? Like, I met this priest and we just made friends, and I was just talking to him about life and his priesthood, and like just incredible stuff. And like they're already Catholic. As far as they know, I'm Catholic. There's nothing to gain.
They're not trying to win you over.
There's nothing to gain or get from me. There's 22,000 people here. They're literally just like, oh, you were standing alone. How are you doing? What are you up to? What's your story? You know, like, and I saw that happening with other people too, who weren't freaks. So I was like, oh, so this isn't unique to me. These people are just being kind. And then, you know, I've gone to different parishes. Everyone's been super cool. So the conference was just this eye-opening thing of like, oh, this is a whole community of people that actually practice their values. I'm sure many people fall short. Sure, I do. We all do. Yeah. But like, to be told my whole life Christians are bad and they want to stop you from doing what you want to do, which is kind of true on some level, I suppose. But like that, and then to go there and have these people be like, hey, if you, just so you know, whatever you've done, wherever you've been, or whatever mistakes you've made, I love you, is like it's like everything to stop myself from weeping almost. Yeah. Just to talk about it. It's incredible.
Now, what was, if you don't mind me asking, you can share as much as you like. We went, my spiritual father, Boniface, hopefully one day yours as well. Celebrated Holy Mass in his hotel room, and we were invited. So there was like 5 or 6 of us.
Yeah.
And that man, when he speaks, it's like,
it's incredible. Yeah. So can I tell you that I was terrified to do that, and I almost didn't do it?
Tell us all. Because it was the night before. You weren't having cigars because you don't smoke, but I was having cigars, we were drinking. You weren't drinking.
We'll
get to that later.
I was drinking soda.
We'll get to that later.
I was drinking soda.
And I invited you two to come, and it was quite late. It was a great night, by the way.
Such a fun
time. I'm usually out by 9. I'm tired. I'm peopled out. I was loving it.
Yeah, we went out with the boys.
It was fun,
It was a good time.
And that huge exercise we got running around that stadium, not knowing where we were.
We went on an adventure.
It was an adventure.
Yeah, we tried to find the box office so we could go into a place we didn't know we were. We're like enlisting random people to help us. They're telling us to go the wrong way. We're going through doors to say don't enter. What a good time. It reminded me of Boy Scouts. When you're just kids and you're kind of like, you're not necessarily up to no good, but you're going to do whatever it takes,
funny.
You know?
Chesterton said that an inconvenience is an adventure wrongly considered. And so I like that you saw it as an adventure.
Incredible. Yeah, that's like my modus operandi. That's like, I love that. Adventure is what I'm all about. And so
so I invited you to come the next morning.
So you invited,
no
speaking
pressure.
of adventure. So we meet. You're so kind. I meet all your friends. I'm hanging out with you. I'm making friends with people. I'm feeling real connections. I'm like, okay, so these are the boys, and I like these people. If we get in a fight tonight, I'm gonna have their back, kind of thing. You know, you decide that as a man. We're friends. And so then you invite me, and I'm like, wow, this feels like a big deal. And then I realized, like, I'm like new, I've been going to mass for like 6 months or something, consistently. And so I'm like, do I want to go to mass with these people? What if I kneel at the wrong time? What if I like don't say the right thing, or I sing bad, or you have all these like wild thoughts, or like, what if I'm going to be there with like a Benedictine monk who's going to do mass in his hotel room. He's going to be so close to me, I could hit him. Yeah. And there's going to be a Byzantine nun, like, and then me. Do I even deserve to be in the room with these people? And I'm trying to get into this mode where I'm like, well, I should pray about it. I should think about it. And so I was praying about it, and I just had this feeling like, if you're allowed to be in the room with Christ, the Eucharist, why would you not be allowed to be in the room with these people? And so I was like, be courageous. So it was this moment where I was like so nervous, and I just felt embarrassed for myself, and I was like, I'm going for it. And so I woke up on time, I went down there, and I go, and of course I get into the hotel lobby, and it's just Mother Natalia waiting, and I was like, this is my nightmare. It's the nun. I'm by myself with the nun, and we're all tired, and she's kind of like not austere, but she seems serious, like she's ready for the task, and but she's sweet, and I'm just kind of like, just barely like, hey, how are you? And I'm in my head, and I'm so nervous and embarrassed, and I want to impress her, and then I'm like mad at myself for wanting to. Why do I need people to like me? And so I'm dealing with all this, and then you show up, and I feel much better, and you're like, let's get a coffee and whatever. And we go up, and mass starts, and I'm still nervous, and I'm like in my head, and I'm like feeling kind of awkward. And as mass starts to go, I'm having this like, is it a charismatic experience? Is that what I wanted? When you like have it's not a miracle, but it's like I feel like I'm being literally spoken to by God. One of the, and it's almost like someone put their forehead on mine and was like, I'm with you. Yeah. Like everything's okay. I'm here with you right now. And I just started crying, and I was like, okay, so now I'm crying in front of everyone. And there was one moment of like, I'm embarrassed. And then there was like hey, I'm with you right now. I'm with you. Everything's okay. And I just started weeping, and I was like, okay, so let's just do a little manful cry. I've heard of people crying in mass before, and I've never wept during mass. I've wept in church, is a story I'll tell you later. But I begin to cry. I'm like, let's get a little manful weep in. I'll just like some tears rolling down, and then I start to cry, and I'm like, all right, we've crossed over into like a toddler crying. Well, I'm like, snot is running out of my nose, because I'm like, now I'm fully weeping, and I'm like, oh no, and I'm wearing the clothes I'm gonna wear all day, and I'm wearing like a vintage t-shirt too. So I'm like, I really like my t-shirt. I can't. And who comes to the rescue? Cameron Fradd, your wife. She had I just feel this tap on my arm, and I go, oh, and I look over, and it's a napkin, and I'm like, these are the greatest people. This is exactly where I belong. This is who I belong to. This is the purpose of my life. This is the most fulfilling thing I've ever experienced, And it was this moment of just like someone giving me a napkin, and literally God is talking to me, and Father Boniface is there, and it's so beautiful. And I was like, this is the culmination of me, of any sort of worry or like questions of faith I had, just like were obliterated. It was awesome. It was a great experience. Thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah. But I was just like, wow, I cried pretty hard in front of everyone. I was like, hey, if anyone else wants to start crying, that would be awesome for me.
Well, we've all been there. Like we've all wept at mass or had those experiences, so it was nothing.
So now I know that.
Yeah.
But it also affirms my faith in that I've heard Thomas Aquinas wept in mass. And you're like, oh yeah, the smartest guy ever, and he wept in mass. Well, he was a saint.
Yeah.
So when he weeps, like whatever, he probably weeps when he prays. He's in touch. He's got the direct line. He's a saint. And so when I'm crying, I'm thinking like, this is weird, right? I don't even understand. I'm so overwhelmed with emotion. I'm having like a psychedelic experience or something. And then to find out like, no, that is normal. The Holy Spirit does that to us.
So I had this experience at Mass, and I'm reluctant to share it because it might sound crazy. And I tend not to say things like God told me this or God told me that, because whenever people say that to me, it makes me afraid. And but I'm going to say it anyway. I had this sense, okay? So I'm going to veil it in mystery. And it's because what do I know? Maybe I was hallucinating or I had a bad bit of steak. But as Father Boniface lifted up the Eucharist, I just had this image of this flood, this like ocean just hitting you directly. And, maybe that meant nothing, maybe, but I was just praying for you and
It
to
happened.
be in the presence of our Lord, man.
It was like the most affirming experience of my life. Truly a life-changing moment. And then Father Boniface is there, and I just look over and Mother Natalia has her hand on her cheek, and like the image of her is burned into my head. She's so beautiful and so virtuous, and like I get emotional about Mary, which is something I didn't know would happen, especially as like a person who's never been exposed to Catholicism until recently. She's powerful. It's a powerful image. And so I'm just seeing her there, and she's like she's Mother Mary, or like that's how I'm feeling. Like Mother Natalia is the embodiment of all these virtuous and all the most beautiful things about a woman. And I'm just like, this is insane how good this is. There's so much goodness in the room. It's like overwhelming.
Yeah.
It was good. Just thinking about, I'm like, if I start crying 15 minutes into the podcast.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was a joy. And it was funny too, because you had a lot of people recognize you.
I did. Which was fun.
The funniest moment, of course, is because I'm walking 5 feet and being stopped continually.
Yeah, that's your Super Bowl.
That's my Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But we went to a coffee shop together. It was like a 12-minute walk, and I'm standing at the register, and you're there, and there's a guy behind you looking in my direction with his mouth open. I'm like,
yeah.
Wait, me or him? He's got no idea who I am.
He
was so pumped to meet you.
Yeah, it was me.
And he was so cool.
He was. He wrote me on Instagram, or he posted on Instagram and was like, I'm at Shayne, and he was like so nice. We had like really genuine interaction, and I was like, yes.
And you said
that's what I'm trying to do.
You said something funny, because I thought it was cool that he didn't ask for a photo when he clearly wanted one.
Yeah.
And then you said,
I said, I noticed that, and I want to sometimes be like, do you want a photo? Because I want to offer it to them. Yeah. They're so cool that I want them to have it, even though we're doing the respectful, kind thing. But once I was like, would you like a photo? And they said no. And I was like, well, never doing that again. That was the worst thing that's ever happened. And it was a beautiful woman too, by the way. Man. So I was like, no, just like, yeah, that's the worst.
Now, you said something interesting to me as we were sitting at the cigar lounge. You said you gave up cigarettes, if I understood you correctly, when you were 14.
Yeah.
Please explain to me what happened before you were 14.
So I just grew up white trash, is what we're going to say. Trailer trash. And I had a hard childhood. It was just so many weird things happened. It was bad. So when I was young, I was like 12 and I was hanging out. I'm like just barely 12, and I'm hanging out with some of my friends, and we just get in my friend's dad's car or truck, and we drive out to the gas station that's outside of town. Now, for people who don't know, I grew up in the middle of nowhere, more middle of the nowhere, whatever you're imagining, just imagine like a chapel, and then, in a movie, and then you look down the road and there's nothing, and you look down the other side of the road and that's where I'm from. And so this gas station is literally in the middle of nowhere. It's like a way station for people, but it's a real gas station. And we pull up and there's no one working. Usually it's 24 hours, but we're like, oh, no one's here. And the back door was kind of open. And so we just smashed the back door open. And now we're robbing this place, clearly, as teenagers do. And we stole a ton of energy drinks and a pallet of cigarettes. Like, they had not unloaded the pallet. And so
how did you get that out of there?
We just by tossing it into the truck.
Oh, I see.
Like we didn't just like get the pallet, like a thing at a time.
Yeah.
Like it probably took us like an hour or two, honestly. So we steal all this and then we drive it back and we take it to like our tree fort we built in the middle of nowhere and stock it full of cigarettes and energy drink. And we had infinite cigarettes. So I started smoking at 12 years old and I was smoking, no joke, a pack or more a day until I was 14. So I had to quit. It wasn't just like I was like, oh, I shouldn't do this. It was like I had to literally quit cigarettes. Like it was a problem. So yeah, I was a little man. I was up to stuff as a child, you know.
So if it's not too intimate to ask, did you not have kind of parents who were guiding you and with you in all this?
I didn't have a lot of guidance. Okay. My mother, who I love very much, and our relationship is incredible now. She's a wonderful woman, and I honestly thank God for God. I guess, you know, without him, a lot of healing my relationship with my mother wouldn't be possible, which I didn't even realize necessarily until later. But so she was dealing with substance abuse and just like, well, she had horrible husbands. So I can't blame her. She's literally trying to survive life. And when a mother is trying to survive life, you are put in a situation where you're trying to survive life. And so I had moments where people were paying attention to me, but by and large, I did literally whatever I wanted and had no oversight, which, you know, is incredibly negative. As a kid, there's lots of people who are out to hurt you, and I was exposed to those people. And then also you hurt yourself because you're a child. And so I didn't have a lot of, like, I don't think I did, like, I have like maybe 4 years of formal education under my belt, ever. So I was just up to my own stuff. So I did whatever I wanted. You know, smoking was not a problem for me. Like who would stop me? And so, you know, and I also grew up in a house where sometimes it would be like, hey, if you go home tonight, you're going to catch a beating. Not from my mother, but my stepfather. One of my stepfathers was a murderer and an incredibly bad guy. And I'm being serious. He went to jail for murder, or manslaughter. And so my other stepfather he just didn't care about me. I don't think I ever had a conversation with him, ever. So that's a horrible thing for a kid too, but in a different way. One is completely neglectful to me in a way that's like so and totally complete that I don't even understand what's going on there. And the other paid too much attention to me, but was evil. And so, yeah, so I dealt with that. So there would be times where I just wouldn't come home for days, you know, because I would be like, well, I can't deal with X or Y, or I would come home and see that things were going on at home I didn't want to be a part of and kind of just sneak off into the night. And I had times as a child where like I wouldn't want to go home, but I had nowhere to go, but it was too cold to sleep outside. I would freeze to death. So I would stay up all night walking to stay warm until the next morning when I could visit a friend. And then their family would be very cool. Like, oh, Shane, what's up? And I'd be like, oh, I'm just hanging out. And like play it off and get breakfast and then take a nap. So that was like my childhood.
I'm really sorry that happened to you. I mean, you don't want me to say that or need me to say that, but I'm really sorry that happened to you.
I assume you would be sorry, you know, because it sounds so terrible. And you're a father, so I know it hits you differently. In me, I don't have any kids. I think a lot of that is, well, one, because I'm not married and I don't, you know, I have no one to start a family with. But two, I've feared marriage and family. Yeah. I think totally because of my experiences. Yeah. But like, yeah, I had wild experiences, even in terms of like, my first stepfather was neglectful. His grandparents didn't like me, and they were the grandparents of my 3 brothers. Okay. And so like we went to Christmas with them and they just didn't get me gifts. So my brothers all got gifts and I was like just chilling by myself. And then I have to watch my mother like have this scream at these people, and then she's sorry. And then like, you know, it was just a tumultuous childhood throughout. And so I really took care of myself and my brothers. You know, we took care of each other as much as we could, but we were also very poor, sleeping on a mattress together, like all of us type thing. So, but I also have incredible memories from that time of my life. Like some of my favorite memories of my entire life, or me and all my brothers packed into this tiny room with our boombox playing whatever music, Linkin Park, whatever, and then we're all playing video games together. Like watching my big brother play like a video game and all of us are watching and we're all together. Those memories are like really good.
Yeah, I don't mean to try to relate to your childhood at all.
No,
but
please.
I remember talking to my wife about some of my greatest experiences as a child was playing video games with friends, and she's like, that's so sad. I'm like, no, actually it isn't. It was the best.
It's beautiful.
We would eat chocolate biscuits, as we call them in Australia, drink coffee, stay up all night, and we were together.
Yeah.
And we were united around this thing, and it was great.
It was great. Yeah, video games, people have like a weird thing with video games, especially like our age and a little older. And I just think it's like a cultural idea that video games are like not worth our time. But if you imagine if you had told her some of my best memories are just being with my mates throwing rocks at a train, she'd be like, oh, that's like kind of beautiful. And you just have to reframe it and understand that video games aren't really what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know, video games are powering your imagination to go to a different place.
Now, you're younger than me, but not by a lot.
Not by a lot.
So we probably remember the same video game. So we're going to do this now.
Yeah.
All right. So for me, my top 5 games were probably, at a given time, maybe Quake, Red Alert, Pandora Directive was my all-time favorite game. Those were all on the PC.
Yeah.
There was a game called Phantasmagoria, which I wouldn't recommend people checking out.
I know it.
Do you?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And
Quake is also one that
Duke Nukem 3D, obviously, when that came out.
3D. Don't Google that, everybody.
Don't Google it. Don't play it. But at the time, I just remember thinking, I would be happy if I could play this all day.
Yeah. Man, so fun.
What about you?
So me and my brothers, so my stepdad actually, so he used to like, I think he would collect debts. And so if you're like in a motorcycle club and you collect debts from like people who have gambling debts or loan debts or owe money for any number of nefarious reasons, you get to show up to their home and be like, I'm going to kill you if you don't give me this money. And when you do that, you also get to go, oh, and also give me that. Really? And so sometimes my stepfather would bring us home like a Nintendo or whatever, and we'd be like, sick. And so one time he brought us home a computer.
Wow.
And we were like, okay. And so then it was off to the races, and we played StarCraft, Red Alert.
I should have said Warcraft 2.
Warcraft 2. Oh, Zug.
My goodness.
Those.
And they had those Warcrafts, you could create your own land space.
Yes.
And so you would build the walls ahead of time and
so good. Yeah, we would do the StarCraft map editor all the time. So any RTS or real-time strategy game, so like Red Alert was a big one for us. We loved that. And then what else did we play? I mean, we played a bunch of stuff on Nintendo, or Super Nintendo too, but PC was where it was at. StarCraft and Red Alert were huge. My big brother was way into Quake 2, and he would like make custom maps and stuff. What else did we play on PC? Diablo.
Oh yeah, that was
a lot of Diablo.
I don't think you can find the first one very easily out there these days.
I think they've remade it.
The second one I think got remade. Maybe the first.
Yeah. I think the first one has a remaster, but I'm not sure.
The first Quake was legitimately scary.
Yes.
Do you remember that? I would play in a dark room with my friends, and you would hear that monster behind the wall was about to eat you.
Yeah.
It was legitimately frightening.
We played, I remember watching my brother play Silent Hill.
Oh, yeah.
And we would just, the lights would be off, and we'd be like in a blanket, and everyone would be scared. I can't play those. I still to this day can't play scary games.
Yeah.
They get you.
What about scary movies?
Scary movies are fine. Yeah. I don't watch them. I feel like it's a thing you do with, it's a romantic activity. I think getting scared with someone you're romantic with is fun.
Okay.
And,
but on your own is...
On my, my brother's way into horror movies. Like he's subscribed to Fangoria, interested in the director and like how they're written and what they mean. And I'm like, you're a serial killer. What are you doing? Like you watch horror movies by yourself? Yeah.
I do not enjoy that experience when I'm on my own. Although I'm okay listening to really good online horror, like Knife Point Horror is an excellent podcast I listen to. Or I can see myself reading some Lovecraft or something.
I'll read it.
Yeah, but I wouldn't watch it.
But reading it, there's like so much more happening.
Yeah.
It's so much more interesting. So yeah, horror movies though, I'm just kind of like, why am I scared by myself right now?
When did you get your first tattoo?
14.
Tell us that story. How that evolved.
So I got my first tattoo. Me and my best friend Devin at the time were like, we need to get tattooed. Girls love tattoos. We're cool guys who listen to metal and punk rock. Why aren't we covered in tattoos right now? And we're children. And so we lied to a guy and said we were 18. And he had to have known. But he was just like, yeah, whatever. And so he tattooed. It's actually these words on my wrist that say live, love, burn, die.
Okay.
It's supposed to be burn with passion. It's like a little Shakespearean deal, which is why this arm's blacked out, but that tattoo stays, because it's a matching tattoo with my childhood best friend, who him and I have gone totally different directions in life, but stayed friends the whole time.
Cool.
So fun. Yeah. But yeah, so I got that tattoo, and after that it was off to the races. I mean, I got a lot of kitchen table tattoos, which is like when you just have a guy with a homemade tattoo gun get you. It's not a gun, it's a machine, but this is I'm using the word gun. It's like a pejorative. Like, this is bad. I should not have done this. And I got like a lot of bad tattoos. I was covered in bad tattoos by the time I was 19, I was heavily tattooed.
Yeah.
Heavily.
Now, it must be quite the step to go from arms, even chest to face.
Yeah.
I mean, and neck.
Yeah.
So when did you make that decision, and was it hard at the point you made it?
It was not hard because I was involved just with groups of people where tattoos, it was the culture. To have tattoos was like a symbol of your commitment to what you were up to in your lifestyle, a sign of like toughness, manliness, and sort of it was kind of a commitment thing. Like, yeah, I'm in this. You don't want anything to do with me. It was sort of like just prison style basically. And so I got my face tattooed with another friend as sort of like, I mean, it was a gang tattoo at the time. So that was the first one. And so yeah, it was just like, it wasn't even a thought. It just happened. You know, as soon as we decided together, it was on.
What is the gang tattoo, if you don't mind me asking?
So I used to be a part of like a group of people, and I won't say the name, but it's the markers for the name of the group.
Gotcha.
Like a motorcycle club.
Yeah.
So, and that motorcycle club doesn't exist, which is why I haven't covered these up, because they kind of just don't matter anymore.
Right.
Now they're a little reminder of like, hey, this is where you come from. Mind your P's and Q's, and be not that guy. Okay. Be not that child, because I got them when I was so young. But like, so so that group patched into another larger group. Motorcycle clubs absorb smaller motorcycle clubs, so that's just how we'll talk about it. Yeah. So yeah.
Now you've covered up a lot of your tattoos, and I wonder if you'll cover up more, and why.
Yes, I am covering up more. These tattoos, so my neck is a cover up, my arm is a cover up, and I have a cover up on my stomach and on my leg, and they were gang tattoos. They were just either gang tattoos or they were lewd. Yeah. And I just didn't want them anymore. And so I covered them up just to kind of like move on. Yeah. But genuinely, truly, I love being tattooed. I always say I think a real gift you can give yourself as a person is to look into the mirror, and the person you imagine yourself as looks back at you. This is how I want to look. I have tattoos. I love tattoo culture. I think it's something, decorating ourselves in terms of just clothes and jewelry and whatever is a part of human culture. The oldest mummy we've ever found in the world has tattoos. She has a sparrow tattooed on her, not even like a random design, like a sophisticated, like a clearly just art. And so I think tattooing is beautiful, and I want to be covered. And so even if I had no tattoos now, I like this. Like, people hate this tattoo. They hate the blackout or the patterns. I love it. I like, what do I want to say? Historical tattooing. So like, a lot of tattooing that's like found on mummies and stuff is cool to me. I love that. And a lot of, especially like, Slavic or Norse or Scandinavian or even like Pickney and like European, upper Europe, Northern European tattooing is, which I am obviously, which I assume we both are just by looking at us and everything about us, but is like real heavy black work or blue work being covered. And so I like that. So I would get that anyway. So I was like, let's roll. Let's just cover this up. And so I'll be doing that in the same way on this arm as well. Now, these tattoos aren't bad, and I actually like some of them a lot, but I just feel like there's a maturity that I see in myself when I look at this tattoo, and I just want that for the rest of me. So if I had these tattoos and I couldn't get them covered, it would not affect my life. I would be a very happy person and I would enjoy them, but I'm going to cover them because I think tattooing is marking a point in your life, and people get frustrated like, oh, why are you covering them? And it's like, well, no, tattooing is a part of your life. And just because I've done one doesn't mean the process is over. I am a continuous process. And so is my art. The way you dress will also evolve over time. You were not such a well-dressed person when you were younger, I'm assuming.
Nope. A lot of Metallica shirts, which I'd like to bring back from time to time, actually.
Hey, I have a bunch of vintage Metallica shirts. I'll give you one or two.
Oh, I wish I had my old school ones, because you can go buy them now, of course, but they're just reprints. But we'll get to Metallica. But so you said lewd tattoos. Did you have any sort of satanic or pagan ones you had to cover?
Yes.
Or wish to cover?
Yeah. So I used to have the sigil of Lucifer tattooed on my thumb right here. And it was kind of like I was involved with, again, I was like an the new atheist, the new atheism was like a thing for me. I've always been interested in history, philosophy, and theology. I've always thought theology was beautiful, but I've always kind of been annoyed by it because, like all people, I just want to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
What do you mean I can't masturbate? What do you mean I can't do whatever I want on Sunday? What do you mean I have to think about the consequences of my actions in a broader term? This kind of thing. And so if you admit God is real, you have to admit that he has expectations of you. And that just was obvious to me. So I spent a lot of time trying to justify to myself that God was not wanting anything from me, despite the fact that I knew. So new atheism, and then the Satanic Temple, which is like a atheist organization, though I don't know.
No, I had a former Satanist on my show recently. You should check it out.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that.
And he talked about how he's convinced that those higher up are absolutely believers in Lucifer.
Yeah, in retrospect, like, something's going on. Come on. So, but they did work, they did like, what do I want to say? They're a political organization. They're just a political organization. And some of the stuff they did was on surface level was like, like doing the like after school stuff for kids. If you don't believe in Satan, that's just a silly heavy metal guy tutoring a kid in math, right? There's nothing negative about that really in your head. And so as I'm, I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm interested in this like sort of secular warriors for reason. And so, and then I love heavy metal. I've always been into heavy metal culture. So I'm like, why wouldn't I get heavy metal tattoos? And so I got it on my hand. It's like an edgelord, like a I'm kind of like a cool guy. And over time, I realized it was cheesy and dorky. But I have a lot of cheesy and dorky tattoos, so I left it. Whatever. And then as I began to, even before Christianity was interesting to me, I kind of thought, this is stupid. Like, this is like genuinely negative. Do I even want this? And I was thinking about how to cover it, and I was like, I don't know. It's a weird spot. It's a weird spot on my thumb. And I was like, I could just cover it by like blacking it out more, I guess, but that kind of is weird. And so I'm deciding what to do with it. I decide to convert. I decide Christianity. I decide to convert to Catholicism. And now I'm like, now I'm interested in victory over the beast. Satan is a real concept. I understand what's going on with that. And I unfortunately have experiences with it. And so I go to my tattoo artist. I'm like, I want to cover this. This is why, whatever. And she goes, okay. And she's like, this is a tough spot. Well, how are we going to cover this? And so we ended up fitting a cross perfectly in the pattern to cover it. And then because of the way the sigil of Lucifer is drawn, we left 3 perfect diamonds in there that accidentally represent the trilogy. Trinity. Sorry, the trilogy. I got Lord of the Rings brain. The trilogy of God. You know how that works. It was the Father, then the Son, then the Holy Spirit. I'm a big fan. So it was, but it represents a Trinity, and it was just, I got this tattoo, and it's kind of like, yeah,
that's cool.
Get
man.
some. Let's go. So it was cool. And I've covered other ones that were just like whatever, you know.
Now, when I see the 3 big X's on your neck, I think pornography, but that's not what it means. Oh, by the way, I want to tell people that we are going to have Thursday, if you could put a link to Michael Davis's interview below. He's the ex-Satanist. It's an incredibly powerful interview. If people are interested, click the link below and watch it. What does the 3 X's mean?
So that's straight edge.
Yeah, so
that's a subculture of metal and punk that is about sobriety and just, what do I want to say? Bettering yourself. And so punk back in the day was all about like, oh, what's wrong with society, man? And then also I do a lot of drugs and free love and whatever. It's hippie stuff. Mm-hmm. It was hippie stuff with an edge. And there were a lot of people in punk rock who were like, we are talking about material things. What material change are you making? You're just making people mad at you. This is stupid. You're just getting attention for nothing. You're saying things that don't do anything. And so there were bands like Black Flag, Henry Rollins, who's a huge hero of mine, and all these people were like, no. I wear gym shorts. I work out. I'm jacked. I'm not out here trying to have a ton of casual sex. I'm not doing drugs. I'm just wearing a t-shirt. I have some tattoos. I have a good haircut. I'm strong and I make good music. And my message is that a same political message. Things have to change. We live in an oligarchy, whatever. But like now I'm taking it to the streets, on a personal level.
So rather than complaining about the world not changing, you focus on yourself?
Exactly. Well, you take it down to the material level where it matters. Okay. The idea is that the most punk rock revolutionary thing you can do is better yourself and then better the people, the lives who you're a part of. Yeah. If I'm sober, my wife has a better life, as long as I don't have a problem, I'm not addicted to anything. If I'm sober, I can help the lady next door clean the squirrels out of her gutter. Yeah. I can, and so it's about making the world better in a real material sense. Yeah. And to them, that was more punk rock.
So is it a commitment?
It is a commitment. It's an oath you make.
And what do you have to commit to?
You're committing to no substances and no alcohol and no smoking for the entirety of your life. Now, there are lots of people who then get in the weeds about it. As all people do with philosophy or commitments or whatever, just like we do as Catholics, we have a lot of questions.
We need a council. We need to define some things.
Yeah. So there's a straight edge council of Nike or whatever. And so where they were kind of like, like obviously if you break your leg and they give you morphine, you're still straight edge. Obviously, if you need to take Xanax because it's prescribed to you by a doctor, you're straight edge. Obviously, if you have, if you're going through leukemia and you're prescribed edibles, THC and edibles to like try and understand, not feel in pain constantly, you're still straight edge. Mm-hmm. It's about frivolous things. It's about masking pain. It's about not embracing true life. It's about living your life in an authentic way that takes care of everyone around you. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah.
So it's awesome. How long has it been since you haven't drank, smoked weed, done other drugs, cigarettes?
14th birthday.
Wow.
So I'm 37 now, so 23 years or something.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So you haven't drunk since you were 14?
Yeah.
That's a lot of commitment to make as a 14-year-old to stick to it, man. That takes courage.
I don't have a lot of things I would ever be like, I'm good at this or whatever. I even hesitate to say I'm a good comedian a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. What I will say is anytime there's ever been a moment in my life where I needed to commit to something or I thought things were different, I've been incredibly good at identifying it and being like, this right now, always, forever, boom, and sticking to it. I'm really good at that. It's only happened a couple times in my life, but I think by virtue of it happening once when I was 14 and me sticking with it till now is a good indication that I'm pretty solid on this.
So are there any people part of the straight edge community who are at some point in their life like, listen, I'm married, my wife wants a glass of wine with me, I'm doing this with her? Or is that absolutely no?
No.
Yeah, you can't.
Absolutely not. This is like...
I wish the church was as strict as your previous community. We have a very big dispensation culture in the church.
Yeah. It's hardcore. It's an oath. It's an oath you make, and you keep it for your brothers, for other people. It's sort of like there's no like meetings. There's nothing to it. There's no uniforms. But when someone else is straight edge, you go, how long? And you go, I love you. You know, and that's it.
What about pornography?
Pornography is not something people really talk about. Casual sex and pornography aren't necessarily a part of the core parts of it, but it correlates deeply with it. And so people do sometimes go, oh, you're straight edge, so no, you don't have sex before you're married or whatever, which I think is cool. And, you know, but that's not the strict part of it.
I heard there were elements of straight edge like not conforming to a particular religion. Is that not true?
No, not even close. Okay. Straight edge is heavily, there are lots of Mormon people who are heavily straight edge. And also there's a very, very, very strong Christian straight edge scene. And they actually make the heaviest music. No one even comes close.
Tell me about some of these bands.
So... it's funny because one of my introductions to God and how sincere and good it can be came from a band called Sleeping Giant, which is a hardcore band. Now, they're from Orange County and Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City, where I'm from, is... I'm just going to say they're the most straight edge. When I came up, there was about 20 years where Salt Lake was the most straight edge place on earth. There was no scene in hardcore that even came close. Hardcore is a subset of metal and punk. And while it's played, it has things called breakdowns and two-step sections where you have a physical act you perform during the music. So a breakdown, it's like a 4/4 beat usually. And it's very like, if you heard it just in your chest and you knew nothing about the music, you'd be like, ooh, this has got me going. Like, it's like the haka. And so you do this thing called moshing or hardcore dancing, or just moshing is what most people call it. And it's not bumping into each other. You're throwing punches and kicks. You're doing cartwheels. You're doing backflips. You're grabbing people and yanking them down. You're just grabbing someone and punching them in the face. You're running full speed into the crowd. You're jump kicking people. It's incredibly violent. Yeah. Like absurdly violent.
So that sounds really bad then, because I don't think it would be a good thing to physically hurt a friend or a stranger. So I mean, there's an agreement, I suppose, that's taking place among everyone.
Think of it like rugby. And then there's kind of unspoken rules and just a social order where it's not necessarily wanton. It's not like if I just grabbed you and looked you in the eye and hit you in the face for no reason, it was the wrong part of the song, it just didn't make sense, and I'm trying to hurt you, it would be obvious, and I would probably get beat up. So there is a certain amount of rules, but they are not set in stone. It's very ebby and flowy, and there can be confusions and people can get mad, but for the most part,
it's not all holds barred.
There's a brotherhood to it and a sisterhood too that is wild. You get knocked out by someone and you stay and you hold it. You're like, yeah, let's go, baby. That was sick. So
I hate that so much. I think.
It's funny. It's not for everybody.
Good. I would hope not.
Yeah.
No, it is for everybody.
There is a safe place to be at these shows.
So the closest I can get to that, which is not very close. When I used to be in mosh pits and things when I'd go to metal concerts, and I loved it. I love the aggression of all of us kind of like, seething as a group, as it were, like the ocean.
I like that too.
But I remember as hanging out with some friends, good mates of mine, one of the best experiences we all had together was about 11 p.m. at his birthday party, where we all decided to go down the street to the park and just wrestle really hard.
Oh, dude.
But there was a respect there because we knew that there's always a respect. If I invite your violence, I have to respect you because you could kill me or I could hurt you. So there has to be a mutual respect there. So that may be the closest I could get to it, where I thought it was a real bonding moment for us.
Yeah. I have done like Muay Thai and like fighting, and there's something about a really, really hard fight where you want to thank the other person for being the way they are and absorbing that punishment and giving it back and sort of taking you to that place.
I get that, but if I'm in a mosh pit with 100 people or more, I can't necessarily consent to a particular act of violence. Like, I don't know if you're going to throw yourself up against me or grab me and throw me and punch me.
Yes,
and I might not be willing to accept that. And so this seems different.
There's also a certain amount of like, well, then if you don't want that, then don't let it happen.
Okay.
And that's an option to you. Maybe.
Maybe.
There are safe places to be at these shows.
Yeah.
I say safe in quotation marks. Some shows, I'll admit, there's no safe place. Most shows there is, though. And so these happen. Salt Lake is well known for being the most violent. The only place that would come close is maybe Boston, and to a lesser extent, I would say Orange County, or a place in California also called the Inland Empire. These two places where the hardcore and straight edge scene is off the chain. Salt Lake is on another level, though. And so Sleeping Giant is a band from here, and they are hard in this scene. In the hardest scene, they are now insane. So you've got the most insane of the insane. We're talking about, like, this is, you're a monk? Well, this is the craziest holy order that you've ever seen. Like, so, and they're Christian. And they're not just a little Christian. These are guys, like, the venue tells them not to preach during their set, and they're just going to preach harder. And they're going to get kicked out forever, and it's going to affect their career, and they don't care. They're going for it. So we're talking about these types of people, and I get exposed to them, and like, this is the manliest, this is the toughest, this is the craziest thing I've ever done, and we're singing about Jesus and Saint Michael smashing the devil to death, and like, this is like visceral,
And this is before you've accepted
This is way
Christianity.
before, and I'm like singing these. There's a song called Tithemy where we're like singing Hallelujah, and I'm putting my hands up, and I'm literally feeling the Holy Spirit. I'm moved almost to tears, but like, I'm thinking, well, this is just everyone together. It's me with my brothers. I'm having a social experience, in music. But like, no, come on, the Holy Spirit's in this room with us. So yeah, I'm listening to this band, The Terror of Demons. This band is so sick. And so that's this Christian metal scene. And there are so many bands like this: Impending Doom, Holy Name, For Today. And they're these bands that are just like literally smashing the devil to pieces. Like, that's smashing sin, being, and they're awesome.
I'm going to work out tomorrow, and I'm going to work out hard to this stuff. I want you to text me and ask me how my workout went, and then shame me if I didn't do it. Also, text me some of the names of these bands.
I will. I'm going to give you some stuff. I'm going to make a little mix for you. You have Spotify?
Yeah.
I'll get you going. I'll get you going.
Please.
Yeah. The holy workout.
Let's talk about Metallica.
Let's do it.
Because I love Metallica.
I love Metallica too.
I love Metallica. You go.
Do you know that I did a month where, as a joke, I wore a Metallica shirt every day for a month straight? A different one.
Did anyone find it funny?
Yeah, I guess. There were people who at first were like, why would you do that? You bought 32 Metallica t-shirts?
So they were all different. Okay.
Yeah. And then people started to get into it. And they were like, I have a vintage shirt. I'll send it to you. Yeah. Every day I'm posting. And so then people started to be like, okay, hold on. This is kind of sick. And then I started getting shirts, and it was hilarious. And I wore a different shirt every day. And I went on a cruise too. So I had to wear these. I had to pack way too many shirts for the cruise because I'm wearing different shirts, but I'm going to the gym. It was hilarious. So I thought it was very funny. It was, my friend of mine made fun of me because I owned like 5 Metallica t-shirts. And he's like, what, are you going to wear one every day of the month? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, actually.
I'm going to commit to that. I'm pushing in.
I am. And so I made it happen.
I want to recommend, if people have never listened to Metallica and they think we're just crazy right now, there's two what do you say, instrumentals that I would point you to. One is Orion from Master of Puppets, which might be one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard.
Yeah?
Yeah, is it Anesthesia pulling teeth on Ride the Lightning? No.
Yeah. No.
Which was the music? Can you look that up, Thursday? Which was the...
I'm having I'm a biggest Metallica fan, and I'm not able to answer this question.
Was that? I think it is Anesthesia. No, Call of Cthulhu.
Call of Cthulhu.
That's
Yeah.
Those are beautiful.
Hero of the Day. The S&M Hero of the Day.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah. S&M is my favorite album they've ever done.
You told me that, and so I listened to most of the album as I was driving home, and it is Very good.
Very, very, very good.
So I got into Metallica right after Load came out.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I wasn't cool enough to be like, well, I liked him before. Well, of course, I guess the Black Album was when they got real big, but
dang.
But then you had to kind of, but yeah. So
I started with Master of Puppets.
Did you? That's the first thing you heard?
Yeah, yeah.
Even as someone, you're younger than me, and
I was a small child.
Oh,
the first time I ever met my biological father.
I didn't think that you could listen to Metallica when you were 7, but I guess you would.
You can, yeah. I think the first time I met my biological father, I was like 4 or 5, 5 maybe. I'd known him earlier. He didn't leave my mom until I was like 2, but I don't have memories of him. And so I remember the first time he picked me up in a Jeep and it didn't have doors. I was like, this is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. This guy rocks, and he's my dad, but that isn't hitting me because my stepfather doesn't love or care about me. And so I don't understand what a dad even does or is. And so he picks me up and he's very loving. He gives me a kiss and I'm like, this is crazy. This guy likes me a lot. What did I do to make this guy like me? And he gets me in his Jeep, no doors, coolest thing ever. I'm like, dang, this guy sick, okay, cool. And he's like buff. My father's like a big like Scottish Nordic guy, and he's got a beard, a big tattoo on his back. I'm like, this guy's cool. And then he puts on Metallica,
Master of Puppets.
Yeah. Wow. And my child ears were like, this is the best thing I've ever heard in my life. This is the toughest, coolest
Master of Puppets
thing.
Is one of their best songs. I played it for my son a few years back and he didn't get it. He's just like, why are they so angry?
That's so
funny. Because life sucks. What do you mean, why is he angry? But isn't that song about drugs?
I don't know what it's about. I've never really looked into it. There's so much to get into with Metallica that I'm also a guy who's like, there are bands that I love and listen to, albums I listen to monthly for years, and I'm like, I like song 3.
Oh yeah, get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Taste me, you will see. More is all you need. Dedicated to how I'm killing you. Come crawling faster. Obey your master. Your life burns faster.
Yeah. I guess that's about addiction.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I thought it was about addiction.
Needlework the way. Never
there
you
it
betray.
is. There it
Life
is.
of death becoming clearer. Yeah. What's your favorite Metallica song?
My favorite Metallica song? Ooh, that's a good question.
It's too hard a question. What's one
Ride
that
the
comes to your
Lightning.
mind that you love? Yeah.
Ride the Lightning.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, definitely.
Cthulhu. Good. Yeah, first Metallica concert I ever went to, I was 13.
Nice. My first one was last year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How are they still going? And tell me what it was like meeting James Hetfield.
They're good. So I got to meet James. He's cool. Nicest guy.
How did you get to meet him?
So I'm friends with a guy who is friends with people in the music. So I'm friends with a bunch of people in the music scene, and I got to go to a concert to see him. And then another friend of mine knows him and was like, "Oh, you were at that concert. Do you like want to meet him?" And so I got to go to like a party the next day. Yeah. And I like just said hi to him and stuff. He's super nice guy, but like just crazy. Like the concert itself was so good. Yeah. Like they got it. They still got it. His voice is there, They're only getting better. I wanted them to, of course, as we all do. I was just like, play all the new stuff or old stuff. No, none of the new stuff, but they played a bunch of the new stuff, and I actually like 2 of the newer albums, so it was good. But yeah, he was really cool, sober guy.
Yeah, that's why I brought him up.
Straight edge.
Yeah, so did you talk to him about that, or what do you know about him?
No, I didn't get the opportunity to like really talk to him about.
So there's an example, right? So you've got James Hetfield, who would probably say he's an alcoholic and who has been sober for periods of his life, but then falls back. Yeah, and then you find out he's in rehab and stuff. So would he still be part of the community, or how does the community?
I don't think he became straight edge until later in life. I think he was trying sobriety, and then eventually he was like, "I'm straight edge," which is it's kind of like. It's kind of like a knighthood. It's not real, but there's something about it that affects you deeply that kind of is like, no, I gotta do this. You know what I mean? Like I'm a certain way now. Everything's different. And I think straight edge has that quality to it. If you like anything, if you take it seriously, I think it's so I'm hoping, but I think if you're straight edge and you fall off and you have genuine contrition, and you're like, I've made a horrible mistake, I can be a better person, I'm going to make this right. I personally would be like, you are still straight edge. I mean, you're still straight edge, and I love you, and I want you to be my brother, and we can do this together, and you should get another straight edge tattoo right now. Yeah.
I wonder who the guy is out there who has the most straight edge tattoos for falling off the wagon.
I've seen I've seen people with a lot of straight. I mean, I have a bunch of straight edge tattoos. So I have X's on my thumbs. I have it says SXE, which is like the symbol for straight edge. And then I have my neck. So I've got a bunch. But sobriety is really important to me. I think it's helped my life immensely. I can't imagine how it would have gone different.
Yeah.
It would not be good.
How did you get involved? Well, tell us how you got involved in comedy. How did that even start? And as you do, would it be okay? And I'm asking really for the people watching, not for you, because I know you don't care. If I had a cigar,
yeah, go for it. Speaking of straight edge,
secondhand smokes.
Let's get a huge cigar going in here. Yeah. No. So I got into comedy because I had all these experiences in my life. I had these very fulfilling experiences, and it's kind of sucks to say that they're fulfilling because they were very negative. I was doing crime. I was not a good person, but you know, it would be ridiculous not to be honest about it and say that like it feels good to have brotherhood, and respect and a thing to work towards and a community and to feel strong and
be protected, to have people who've got your back,
and to have people who have your back, and then almost even more to have someone else's back. Men more than anyone want something to die for. We deeply crave it. We want to die for a reason. We want it so badly. We want our lives to have meaning, but we want our death to have meaning almost even more. And I think so.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the obstacles between us and love and trying to be present in life and make our life more meaningful. Because we're so naturally preoccupied with making our death meaningful that to make your life meaningful is a work. And so anyway, I was like,
I love that this is what you said in response to how did you get started in comedy. It's beautiful.
So I'm doing crime, yada yada yada. It's very fulfilling, but it's bad. Me and my brother together, literally one day, just look at each other and we go, we gotta go.
Yeah.
So we did. We left.
Did something happen that kind of went bad?
No, not really.
You just both woke up and went, we don't want to live
we were
like
just
this?
like, we're not good guys.
Yeah.
I don't want to steal. I don't want to hurt people for money. I don't want violence to be my life is wildly violent.
Yeah.
From the time I was a small child until I was in my mid-20s, violence is the theme of my life. I've experienced, been a part of, and committed acts of violence in extreme ways. I've seen, I mean, just as much as a person can see. You can't see more than I have. You just can't, unless you're fighting in the Battle of Stalingrad. Like, truly. So I stopped doing that. I have
just to pause there for 1 second, because it is so much more hardcore to be master over your passions than to allow your passions to master you.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of what you're seeing in the straight edge community.
Yes.
I mean, what do I know? I'm not a part of it.
No, totally.
But it's like, you know, and James Hetfield got this right in that some kind of monster documentary where he talked about what it was like in the early years of Metallica, where he'd get hammered drunk, wake up in some bed next to some woman, and how he decided to reform his life. And there is something way more powerful and masculine to say, I'm going to be the hammer, not the anvil. You know?
Yes, 100 million %. Is there a saint who said, very rarely do I find pagans who are manly enough to make chastity a priority in their life. And I was like, that's so tough, dude.
Like
that's so tough.
You can find that quote. That's
yeah. So
that's beautiful.
I think that the Stoics were interested in not drinking too much. They were interested in moderation and discipline. They were also interested in chastity. It's manly to deny your impulses, to be in control of yourself, not just for you, but for your friends and for your family. And so, so I experienced all these things, and for all the negatives violence has, it's wildly fulfilling.
How so?
It's the I don't know if I said this to you. I might have said it to Thursday. So there's a thing where people go, I would die for you. And that's a beautiful sentiment. That's a wonderful thing to say to someone. But when you get deeper into it and you live in a world of violence, I would die for you is not, a dog would die for you. A firefighter's paid to die for you. A police officer I would hope would die to save you. The real question is, or the real message of love that I used to receive was, I would kill for you.
Okay.
I would hurt someone for you. I would put an indelible mark on my soul for you. Who would you hurt for me? That's a scary, sort of negative question, but it's also like the implication is, I love you so much, I would destroy myself and others to preserve you.
I get that.
And as a man, that sounds awful in the context of like a gang, maybe, or even in the military. That's not what you want. But I think anyone who has a wife or kids feels that a little bit.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Yeah, if someone hurt my wife,
Yeah.
I would love
or if she needed you to.
I would, yeah.
If she truly asked you and she meant it and you knew it was what she needed, you would burn the world down. And so...
Let me just quote, here's Augustine. I know nothing which brings the manly mind down from the heights more than a woman's caresses, and that joining of bodies without which one cannot have a wife. It's not the exact quote, but it's powerful.
That's a good one also. Yeah. I wonder with the guy, it truly is about pagans if you're looking for it. But
what you're saying reminds me of what my mate John Henry said. He's my best mate in the world. He said him and his wife, the first argument they got into that was really bad is when they were dating. He said, if I killed someone, would you help me bury them and not call the police? And she hesitated and he was furious.
Yeah. As a friend, you're like, yeah, clearly. What'd you do it for?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a scene...
And I'm not saying that her answer should have been, of course.
Yeah. But I get it. I get it. There's a scene in the movie The Town that's so...
The Town.
The Town. It was written by Ben Affleck, and it's this movie about bank robbers in Boston.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so accurate to what it's like to be in that lifestyle of violence and crime. There's a moment when he shows up to his friend and he wants to fight these guys. He wants to hurt these guys who threw bottles at his girlfriend, but his girlfriend is a secret. So he goes to his friend and he goes, we're going to go. So I need you to come with me somewhere.
That's right.
We're going to hurt some people. I can't tell you who they are. I can't tell you why we're going to hurt them. And then he just looks at him and he goes, we can take your car or mine.
Yeah.
That's where you're at. And there's something fulfilling about that.
I understand that. Yeah.
And I think that to derive fulfillment from love and from sincerity and from a depth of feeling is so much more rewarding. I just want to say that just so people know that I'm not trying to like lionize.
That's right.
Or
and
make it sound like I'm passing off like, no, this is the meaning of life or this is very good. It's not good.
No, because I think what the untwisting of that is Christ allowing himself to be sacrificed, being non-violent, and allowing violence to befall him for the sake of his loved ones. You know, yeah. So we're not advocating violence. It's just to say that, I mean, obviously, all sin gives us something. If it didn't, we wouldn't do it.
Yes. Yeah. And there's, in every... God is everywhere, and there's truth in brotherhood and love. Mm-hmm. And despite the fact that we're doing something so negative, that God's not going to take that truth away from the natural order. Yeah. That is the natural order, and love, is everywhere. And if you love someone, that you're going to feel that, and so
you had but there was an act, sort of repentance between you and your brother when you looked at yourselves and realized you didn't want to be these people.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so we just moved away. It was weird. There are pieces of my life, my conversion story is one of them, where I'm kind of like, what was the antecedent? I don't really know what happened. I don't understand. Like, some external force worked so subtly that I just arrived to this place, and I'm kind of like, wait, what? So me and my brother decided to leave. But yeah, and I had this. It was fulfilling, and I kind of knew where my life was going and who I was and what was important to me. And now I don't. And it's tough, and it's affecting me in a way that I can't describe. It's horrible. I'm miserable. I'm depressed for the first time, and I meet a woman, and she's the first woman who never hit me or yelled at me or treated me bad. And I go, I should be with this woman forever. She's clearly the best thing that's ever happened to me. Which is the bare minimum. That's just what all women should do. They shouldn't hit you all the time, at least. Maybe if I say one bad thing sometimes.
Sure.
But she. And so I'm I'm kind of like, where do I go from here? What do I don't really have a meaning. And so I'm like, I should go to school. But then I realized like, I didn't even graduate high school. I got my GED. And I'm like, well, I don't have a lot going on. I have like an expunged felony, which doesn't mean that an employer can't see that it happened. So what is even the point of forgiving it? I guess I can own a gun. Cool. I like guns. I can vote. Not that I would, but like it's so whatever. So I'm like, I don't know. No one's hiring me. It's hard to live. I can't go to college. And I'm like, well, I go to trade school. And I'm like, well, that costs money I don't have. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. It's very poor. And I'm like, I don't even know where to go or what to do. And so I'm like, maybe I should get back into music. And I'm like, you're not going to get famous playing hardcore. You're not going to, or famous. I don't even want to be famous. I'm not going to make money doing that. And then I'm like, well, I like comedy. I like writing. I could write a book. And I'm like, well, that's hard. And so I'm like, I'm going to go perform. That's something I can do right now. I'm a big fan of the term. Have you ever heard the term perfection is the enemy of progress?
Of course.
I love it. So
I'm
like,
so much, yeah.
Let's do something right now about this.
Yeah.
Let's go. And so I went and did comedy.
Now, what does that mean?
So there's open mics.
I
to
know,
be a comedian,
yeah.
you just have to go do an open mic.
I know, but I want you to lead us through your first time.
Okay,
and
so
like, how did you find out it was an open mic? Who did you bring with you?
I just look up the comedy club. I assume they have an open mic.
Yeah.
Not all comedy clubs do, by the way. I'm just getting lucky. I look it up. There's an open mic. It's on Wednesdays. It's at 8 p.m. or whatever, 7:30 p.m. I go, okay, it's called Wise Guys. Interesting. All right. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go this next week. It was like Friday. I'm like, all right, I got this many days till Wednesday. Let's rock it. I start writing jokes. I'm writing jokes. They're bad. I'm writing jokes. I'm watching comedy. I live in my imagination a lot, which is both a blessing and a curse. So I'm like imagining performing and people out. I'm trying to figure this out. And I write this story about where I used to work at the time. I used to work with disabled kids who have severe autism or down, that they have developmental disabilities. And so I write this story, actually, I must say, I did comedy on like a dare, on like a lark one time before, and I bombed so badly. It was unreal. The jokes were crass. I can't even recall them to you. I wouldn't. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
this was at a stand-up.
This was at a stand-up place. This is like 5 years
open
before.
mic.
This is during the time of my life when I was all feeling good. I had fulfillment.
Where presumably people are a lot more kind of kind and generous to new people doing open mic, right?
No,
they're not.
They're the worst.
But is that usually the case? I don't know.
Yes.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Comedy is hazing central. I think it's less so now.
Yeah.
But 8 years ago, it was terrible. So I go, no one laughs, I get made fun of, and I left. But it was fine.
Made fun of on stage?
Yeah. So the host came up after me and was like, wow, that was wild. That guy was terrible. Check him out. His next show will be, I think he said, at a Pennywise mosh pit. At a Penny, which is a terrible band. They're like a pop punk band, but whatever. He roasted me. I remember it because it was embarrassing, but I didn't care at the time.
You didn't?
It's not my dream. It's not my plan.
Okay.
I just did this to do it.
Okay.
Now I'm focused.
Yeah.
I write this story about helping this kid. I worked with this kid for the first time, and he was allergic to Doritos, and I gave him Doritos because he asked for them.
Okay.
And then he pooped in my lap when I was trying to help him.
He
had cerebral palsy, and I tried to put him on the toilet, and he fell into me and pooped all over me, and then sneezed on my face.
That's a great story.
Yeah,
I really want to hear this.
Oh,
bit.
yeah.
Okay,
And so I told this story. I'm going to retell this story eventually to record.
Okay.
Well, I can tell it to you, but
I'm here for it if you want to. Man.
I think it's online, but I have a much longer and better version of it. But yeah, I tell this story and it goes pretty well.
Yeah.
And my friend Devin, who I told you about, he went with me. God bless him. I love Devin. And so after that I was like, okay,
I could do this.
Wow, I could do this. And it was off to the races. I did not miss a Wednesday. I did not miss one Wednesday for like 4 years. I went to every open mic. I put so much work in.
New content each time?
What's that?
New content each Wednesday?
Not new every Wednesday, because comedy, you're sort of like, you're perfecting and you're moving things around and you're trying to learn, especially at first. A lot of it's just learning how to be on stage. But like, I would write a lot, and I still do to this day. I write more than, I would say 95% of comics. And so I write a new hour every year, but I write more than a new hour every year. Because because I usually have I have not clean jokes and clean jokes. And so I do a little bit of everything. But nowadays I'm actually just going to be trying to write everything clean. This is my new, as of this year, my new goal. So the content may not be for everybody, but they will be consumable by everybody. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
So like, you know, I have jokes where like a lot of people get lit on fire, whatever.
Everyone loves that.
Yeah. But so, but yeah, I did it and I was like, this is good. And I kind of just decided.
So what were you doing for work? 4 years, never missing a Wednesday. What were you doing?
I was working at the group home. And then I was also bouncing.
Okay.
You know, so I was doing that, and so I was working a lot.
And you living with your brother, or are you on your own?
At the time, I was living with my girlfriend.
Okay, yeah.
And so, who I then married. But yeah, I was living with her, and so, and she was very supportive. So it just kind of worked out. But I was gone constant. I was working like, you know, way more than 40 hours a week on top of doing comedy as much as I could and writing. It consumed my whole life. I basically gave up all my hobbies and my social life in order to pursue comedy. But I was in it. Like I said, when I make a decision, I'm really good at knowing everything's different now.
Okay.
And that was comedy. I did it the first night.
And you said, I'm going to do this.
I'm all in. And I'm very poor at this time. And I said, I'm literally going to forgo eating sometimes so I can save enough money to go to shows on weekends. I want to watch headliners. Every weekend I would go to shows like it was my job. I would watch like it was my job. Everything I could consume, I would consume. I'm very... I like to get good at something, and I know how to do it. And that was me with comedy. And I just laid it down. And I got good pretty fast. So much faster than people normally. I mean, normally people don't get a special until like 9 years into their career. I got my first special almost close to 4 years in. So
is this on Dry Bar or
Dry Bar,
else?
my Dry Bar special. And I wrote my Dry Bar special. I started writing it a little after 3 years in. So... that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I think most comics would hear that and be mad at me. They'd be like, you don't deserve it. You didn't pay your dues and stuff. And I kind of didn't.
Yeah, but to go every Wednesday for 4 years, that's a lot.
On top of other ones too.
Yeah.
I smashed through and I truly did give up my hobbies and one of the greatest joys of the last 2 years of my life has been getting to a place in comedy where I'm happy. I don't care to be famous. I just want to not check my bank account when I eat. That's my big goal. And I'm there, baby. It's awesome. And so now I'm rediscovering my hobbies. It's just this beautiful thing where I get to like paint my little Warhammer guys and skate and surf. And now I'm going to mass way too much. And like people are like, what are you doing at church all the time? And I'm like, I do this thing called adoration where I just kind of sit there and I weep a little bit and I talk to a guy that's not there, but he is there. You wouldn't get it, you know? And then also his son is there. He's there for real though. And like,
so I mean, the people I know who've done stand-up comedy say that the drug and the sex scene is wild. How do you navigate that? Or
crazy.
How'd you navigate it? How do you plan on navigating it?
I've had so much practice my whole life. I mean, I used to be hanging out with gangsters. They drink and do hard drugs all the time. It's a huge part of all of that. One of the reasons I was so successful in my former life is because people would be like, oh, Shayne's not going to steal your stuff. Shayne's going to do exactly what you need him to do, and he's always going to be ready to do it because I never have to worry about him being sober.
Yeah.
And I had another friend who was sober, and him and I were like the go-to. And so, I mean, a lot of what we would end up doing because of that is robbing drug dealers. I spent an immense amount of time doing that, and we were very good at it. And so, so I got into comedy, and I was like, child's play. Firstly, you guys aren't murderers, so you can't pressure me to do anything I don't want to do. And I think it was a boon because I was just always ready for whatever. I was never doing anything wild to embarrass myself or like crazy. I mean, people get drunk and make mistakes or do drugs or get in trouble or miss things. I was never trying to go party. It ended up being great for me, but I mean, that's not the case for everybody. A lot of people get into the comedy scene fine, and get out, worse for the wear.
Well, this particular person, who shall remain nameless, said that the concern is if you're not engaging in these things, then you're not climbing the ranks. You're not getting to know the people you might know in order to become famous.
True.
Is that right?
I find that I can go to these places with these people and engage still. And because I grew up around crime and drugs and hard drugs, like when these people are doing, they're doing worse than what, is normal, but not the worst possible, which is what I have witnessed. So I'm comfortable in that environment.
Right.
Or I'm not necessarily comfortable, but I'm not moved. I'm not weird, And so I'm a rock, And so I was able to do that, and they would just be blown away.
Yeah.
It was almost like a positive for me. Yeah. But yeah, that is true. If you're a person like who has sensibilities where you might be worried about that kind of stuff, it can affect you. I think the comedy scene is so diverse now in terms of lifestyles that you can do better without. I think if you have a deep aversion to drinking and being around drinking, you're going to struggle. That's the one that's like almost non-negotiable. So if you can't hang at the bar, you're in big trouble, which is, I think, it's a barrier for some people.
All right. So what is Dry Bar, and how did you first make contact with them?
Dry Bar is a subsidiary of Angel Studios.
Okay. Yeah.
Angel Studios does clean flicks, or they used to.
Yeah, I know the head guy.
Yeah. So,
yeah, and they started with VidAngel, which turned into...
VidAngel. Yeah. So in Utah, you used to go, there would be Hollywood Video, and then there would be like the VidAngel Clean Flicks place. And that's where Mormon girls would want to go on a date, because they had a theater room for kids, but it was monitored by an adult. It's actually a really good idea. And I say kids, I mean teenagers. Yeah. And so that you're not like necking or going crazy. And then the movies are made watchable. So you can watch Silence of the Lambs. Well, this is a crazy... I don't know how that would work, but because Mormons aren't allowed to watch rated R movies most of the time.
Okay.
I think as Catholics, we're like, drink a little, smoke a little, rated R movie, but just know that this is what's in there and make your own decisions. And I love that. I think this is a true church and we're correct about everything. But
I've already come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
But it is pretty badass the way that Mormons crush the family thing. They crush the sobriety thing. We have a lot to learn from them.
Right. And I'm from Utah, so a lot of my, goings on and understanding of things is through interacting with my Mormon friends and girlfriends I've had and things. But yeah, you would go to the Clean Flicks place or whatever, and then you'd watch Last Samurai, and there'd be a mysterious 5 minutes removed from it. I don't know what that was about, but so they ran that place, and so then they decide they want to make their own content, I assume. Yeah. And then they go, we should do some comedy. So they start Dry Bar. Dry Bar starts doing kind of good, and it's all clean comedy, and it's kind of hard to find clean comics at the time. Now Dry Bar is so successful that every comic's like, I'll write a clean 15. I got it. And so there's this guy named Keith Stubbs. He owns Wise Guys in Salt Lake City, Utah. I owe Keith my career. I love him like a brother and a father. He's one of the most important people in my life. Keith, I'm going to clip this and just show it to you so you can see me telling thousands of people how great you are. Keith Stubbs, a truly good man. Love him. He, despite me being dirty at the time and kind of a wild man in the comedy scene, he goes, do you want to do a Dry Bar? The charitableness and the kindness and the belief in me to ask me to do this is so beyond what I can even comprehend now. It's so cool of him to do this. I go, I can do it. And he's like, can you be clean? You have to be clean. I go, I can do this. I have a clean 45 minutes. And he goes, awesome. I did not have a clean 45 minutes. So I go, all right, I got to start writing this. So I went on tour with a guy named Aaron Woodall, who's another beautiful, wonderful, great person who took a chance on me and took me on tour with him. And I work on this clean time, and I write it, and it's crushing. And I'm like, oh, it's actually not hard to write clean. You just simply don't swear, don't say gross stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, it's not hard. I don't know why comics have such a struggle with this.
Do they have rules about what they mean regarding clean?
Yeah. They're cleaner than clean. Yeah. Because they give you a little video before you do it where they're like, no swearing, no whatever. They're like, no, we don't want you to talk about like hard drug use and stuff. We don't want you to disparage your wife. Good. Shout out Mormons. Yeah. Let's go, guys. I remember watching that, and some people people being like, oh yeah. And I was like, even back then as an 8 of 10 atheist or whatever, I was like, no, that rocks. Yeah. And so, so it's cleaner than clean, but I nail it. I'm like, okay, I got this. I got it 45 minutes. I show up, I film it. The audience loves it. I'm like, yeah, this is what's up. And I kind of think, well,
So, real quick, do you have to perform the 45 minutes to be accepted?
No.
They just trust that you'll be clean.
Well, I think they trust Keith.
I see.
Yeah.
And they're filming it. And so I guess if things went off the rails, they just wouldn't publish it or something.
I know for a fact many people who have filmed their specials will never and have never been released.
Okay.
Because they either made mistakes or it wasn't good or it wasn't clean.
Yeah.
And there are comics who are like edgy and lame and contrarian. It's so dorky to be like, yeah, I'm cool, I do whatever I want, and get up there and say something inappropriate. Yeah. And then you get a laugh at the time because you're all in the room together and you're having a good time, and being inappropriate is fun sometimes. Yeah. But that's not what you're being paid to do.
Right.
And they're not going to publish it, guy.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, they laughed, I don't know why you can't put it out there, because they didn't ask you they didn't ask you to make people laugh. They asked you to be clean and make people laugh.
Yeah.
Be a professional. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic.
I like that.
So,
well, I mean, it's a great marketing idea because it's very cheap, presumably, right? People love watching a comedy special.
Yeah.
And they love trusting that it's going to be clean. I know I do.
Yeah, if someone tells you it's going to be and you have that night. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to go on a date night there. Like, I'd love to bring my wife there. And I'd be really disappointed if a guy got up there and was dirty.
It's all couple. Hey, when I film my next one, please come through. I have seats for you.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's going to be, so I go, I do it. It's great. I'm like blown away. But I think in my mind, well, I just made a little money. And then this is nothing.
Yeah.
I wrote this year, whatever. And then it just went viral.
Yeah.
You know? And here
what was
I am.
That like? When did you realize this is doing better than usual?
I realized it was doing better than usual when someone posted the video to Reddit and it had like, it was on the front page of Reddit.
Yeah.
And I'm not like a Reddit guy. I also think that website is evil.
Yeah.
but it's on the front page Reddit and I go, whoa. And then I remember like Cooking with Babish. Is that the guy? This famous YouTube cooking guy was like he was the top comment being like, this is really good. I can't believe he didn't swear. And I'm just like, what? This is crazy. And that was it. I got like 10,000 Instagram followers overnight. Wow. I was like binging with Babish. Right. There it is. Yeah, dude. So I was just blown away. Yeah. And so that was that.
Yeah. So at that
off
point,
to the races.
You know, did you get an agent? Do you have a website where people can book you? How did that?
I didn't have a website for a long time. I didn't get an agent. I had like clubs be like, do you want to come play the club? And the very first club to ask me to play was American Comedy Company. Shout out to American Comedy Company in San Diego. They asked me to come play. I go, oh my gosh. Not the first place I headlined, the first place that asked me to come out of town to headline. Because my first headlining was in Wise Guys for Keith. Again, the man. So I go to American Comedy Company, I headline. It's this incredible experience. People show up. I'm blown away by this. Then an agent messages me and he does a thing called hip pocketing, which is when an agent is like, yeah, I'm going to get you gigs and I'm going to make you some money. But like, I have no obligation to you. We're not signing a contract. Right. I'll just get you gigs and you give me the money you owe me because I get you the gigs. And if I don't want you anymore, no problem.
Yeah.
And this is what most agents do because show business is evil and awful and terrible. And so I did that for a while.
So I'm not seeing why it's evil right now. I mean, I believe you, don't get me wrong, but if someone's coming to you and they're like, if I get you a gig, you owe me this much % of whatever you make. That doesn't seem...
Well, but the idea is that you live in this limbo where if you don't do what they say, they can just get rid of you.
Okay.
There's no contract signed. There's no relationship
where they're working binding. For you, they believe in you.
No, you are an afterthought. And if you make them mad, if you say no, the implication, is that they're just going to discard you like trash. You are in their hip pocket. So there's fear there, there's worry, there's no investment from them. It's awful. And these agencies are terrible. So yeah, that's awful. And so I had him help me out. And that's another thing about show business and living in America, or maybe in life where you get opportunities from people and you're so thankful, but also they're awful. It's this weird amalgamation where you're taking the bad with the good, and I'm thankful to this man for offering me these shows, but he's also taking advantage of me, but also I need him, and also it was nice of him to reach out to me, and I want this job, but I feel so bad, and it's like this whole thing. And so he was my first agent, and then I got a writing agent, and then I bombed a audition for SNL, and my writing agent was like, "I'm never going to talk to you again."
You went to SNL to do
I didn't go there. I did an interview to be a writer, and then I got a call back, and they're like, "We love you. This is so great." And we talked for a while, and then they were like, "Write us two more things," and I wrote them 2 more things. But I was in the process. I had relationship problems at the time, and they were so devastating that I wrote the last thing I was supposed to write SNL an hour before it was due, and it was predictably bad.
Turns out. Now, is it true that SNL can take whatever you've sent them and use it for their own?
I don't think they're supposed to, but I've heard rumors they do.
Yeah.
But I mean, they crank out so much content, like it makes sense that they would. I mean, they should just pay and or credit people, I guess. I don't know, but I've heard rumors that this happens. I don't know for sure. But I have heard rumors from other comics and of course the internet that they just like take skits. I know for sure that they see like a TikTok sketch and they go, "Oh, this is a funny concept," and then they make it their own. Yeah. And people get mad at that, and I'm like, Who cares? Yeah. I don't know. That doesn't bother me, but...
So you decided you didn't want to be a writer. You kind of knew that, though, ahead of time? Or?
I want to be a writer, but writers' rooms are stacked with college graduates. It's kind of a club. And if you haven't graduated from college, you don't get to write. They're not going to hire you unless you know someone. And even then, they're usually going to pick the person with a college education over you. One of the reasons a lot of comedy shows are hot garbage, trash, is because their writers' rooms stacked with college graduates that aren't funny. They're not stand-ups. Yeah. It's insane not to hire. Hey, I'm professionally funny. People literally pay to see what I wrote. I perform it. Can I please write on your TV show or your cartoon or whatever? Nah, I'm going to hire this guy from Harvard who has a creative writing background. I think he's silly. And you're like, okay, well, your show sucks and everyone hates it, and it did 1 season and is bad. So cool.
Yeah, no, I don't like SNL. I don't watch it. People sometimes tell me about something and I watch it and I go, I can see why that's funny, but if you ever say that, it's not funny. Yeah. And then I try to watch the things that my wife watched growing up, but it's almost like the time has passed, and I mean, it's a different generation now, so I don't really find that funny either. I can appreciate certain characters, but I don't really find
I think some guests are good. Yeah. I've seen SNL do well. I'm not a huge fan, but if anyone from SNL is watching, I do want a job and I actually love the show. And if I was on it, I would honor, I mean, but for real though. Yeah. But yeah, I would like to write because stand-up comedy and touring is like so stressful, so much travel, so difficult, very lonely, very, 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 very lonely. And then, it's also like, am I going to have money this year? How much am I going to perform? I got to get this. How much are flights going to be? Like there was 1 year, like last year, flights were like 3 times what they were in 2021 or whatever. It's so like now I've lost tens of thousands of dollars flying all over. Yeah. So that's going to affect my bottom line. So when you write, you have a salary and health insurance and you have a schedule. And you're working on your terms.
I would think that comedians would get paid a decent amount of money to come and perform.
They can.
Yeah.
I do often.
Sometimes. Yeah.
I do often, but like there's still, even when you have a lot of money or you're making a lot of money or you're doing well, the bottom can fall out like that. It could all be over tomorrow for me. You know what I mean? I'm very aware of that.
Why?
It happens. It just happens to comics. You know, I could fall out of favor for some reason.
Dane Cook?
I could.
Is that what happened?
Yeah. Amy Schumer, Dane Cook. And some of these people fell out when they were so famous and rich that it didn't matter. But it can happen. I know comics who tour who don't tour anymore. They just kind of had people stop going to their shows over time, and they just stopped doing as well. And then they just kind of do other stuff.
So now Amy Schumer, I thought was just awful. Whenever she would do stand-up, I would cringe and would stop it almost immediately because it wasn't funny at all, and it was like 5 seconds before she's talking about her genitals. Why did she fall out of favor, though?
I think
those
the
reasons?
Dane Cook reason. I just think she just got out of touch. She just became out of touch.
Didn't Dane Cook get accused of joke stealing? Wasn't that a...
Everyone has been. That's famous. I mean, Amy got accused of joke stealing. I think people prove she stole jokes. Pretty decisively. Okay. I think that's like a non-negotiable. That's like a reality. So, yeah, it's just weird. I think she fell out of. You begin to perform for your audience over and over again, and you can fall out of touch. And there's also, I think, an amount of humbleness you need to maintain.
Okay.
That comics, they start to fall out of that. They start to wear their own merch and believe in their own story, and everyone around them becomes afraid to criticize them. And that happens to famous people. That's a trap you can fall into. It's incredibly dangerous. And if all your friends are comics, that's bad. You need to live. Pete Holmes said something that stuck with me when I was a very young comic. He said, you should live a life worth commenting on.
Oh, that's good.
And my comedy is very autobiographical. So that's
you have a lot to comment on.
Totally
You get
important.
to open up a world that very few, well, maybe more than we think, but a lot of people wouldn't have any access to.
I think so. And in my comedy, especially, it's cool that I can talk about like some wild story. And then, a housewife is like, well, that appeals to me because I have had a time where I was this crazy person or this adversity in my life or whatever, and I overcame it, and I see myself in you, and it's like inspirational. And I'm like, well, that's an unintended consequence of me trying to make you chuckle. Cool.
I forget who it was who said he likes comedians. I think it may have been... Oh, who's the black hilarious comedian who just did a special?
Well, you're describing a lot of guys.
And offended the trans community.
Dave Chappelle.
He's brilliant. And he said something, I think it was him, it might not be, but he said, I like comedians who make you feel like everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And like Norm was like that, right? Like you would listen to him and you would laugh and you'd like, okay, things are going to be okay. And I think Chappelle's like that.
I think Mulaney is a really good example of that, John Mulaney.
So, okay, what do you think it takes to be... Is there a certain theme among bad comedians? You're like, they all kind of exhibit this.
Inauthenticity.
Okay.
Inauthentic. You need to be authentic, because that's why hacky comedians get famous. That's why you can watch a bad comedian do well. Very often, that's their authentic self. And people naturally gravitate towards authenticity. So if you're a cornball, goofy, dad joke, bad comedy guy, and you see someone else authentically doing that, that's your guy. I don't like him. I'm never going to name names. But I don't like him. I think he's corny and bad. I think that comedy sucks.
Okay, yeah.
But that's authentic. He's authentic.
He's not
to
trying
himself.
to sound like somebody else.
Exactly. Or I would say that every once in a while someone inauthentic slips through, because show business is evil and so much of it is nepotism. And if there are times when they decide you're famous before you're famous, and they make it happen. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And so that's a problem with any sort of political type of organization. Not politics in terms of any group you're in or any community you're a part of. Yeah. So
there's a fella who I find hilarious on Dry Bar called Chad Thornsberry. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's, I don't know who you're referring to or not. But
no.
But the fact that he is just himself, he doesn't seem like he's trying to be somebody else, and he's just downright hilarious, and he doesn't kind of dress up for the event. He dresses like he seems like he would dress. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah. I used to dress up. I used to wear a collared shirt and sort of just try to take the edge off of how I look. Yeah. And I had this moment where I would have a dress show. I would bring an outfit for the show. And I had one day where I just said, nah, I don't do that anymore. Yeah. I just, whatever I'm in that day, I'll perform in pajamas if that's what I was wearing before. I don't care. And I realized that authenticity is a non-negotiable part of being truly funny.
Yeah, because it's your authentic self that's relatable. If you're trying to appease everybody, you're not relating to anybody, and 100%. You just seem boring.
And then it's the worst comics look like a guy doing impression of what he thinks a comic is like.
Excellent.
Yeah, you don't like that. And I think that even people subconsciously pick up on that.
Could you imagine trying to be Norm Macdonald?
People do it. It's bad.
Yeah.
It's really bad. It's really, really bad.
So I love Brian Regan.
Brian Regan's great. He's so famous in Utah. It's crazy how famous he is where I'm from.
Now, did he grow up? Is he Mormon or what?
I have no idea. That's the thing. When someone's so popular in Utah, everyone's like, is he Mormon? People say that about me. They go, "Was he Mormon?" I go, "No. Before I was Catholic, I was culturally Jewish, I guess.
Yeah,
but not really."
Was your mom Jewish?
My mom is adopted, but her biological parents are Jewish.
Okay.
Her biological family I'm Jewish. Like, I went to Israel, and stuff to do like whatever they do if you're Jewish. So like, I'm that Jewish. But like, I'm not Jewish enough for like Orthodox people hate me. There's a saying, and this is probably controversial, but whatever. There's a saying that Jewish enough for the Nazis, but not Jewish enough for the Jews.
Wow.
Got it. Yeah. So, and that was my experience. I've never had a lot of luck with the other Jewish people. They've been kind to me here and there, but like, I've tried to go to a synagogue and had them be really like, "What are you doing here?" Like, really weird with me and like kind of unkind. And I live in an ultra Orthodox neighborhood.
Now, is it because of
they're not representative?
Is
of
it because
Judaism.
how you look they respond to you?
I don't know.
Because how would they know you didn't kind of grow up?
I don't know. There are Jewish people with lots of tattoos. I mean, that are devout.
There's something cool about Judaism not wanting you though.
Right?
Isn't there? Like, yeah, we don't really want converts. We don't take you.
I know there's supposedly a rabbi turns you away 3 times if you try to convert. Yeah, I don't know.
Cool story about Mother Natalia having to do with the 3 times.
Interesting.
So I was at her final profession, and when they enter the monastery, they don't cut their hair until their final profession. And I want to say it was like 8 or 9 years before she made her final profession.
So a lion's mane.
Oh, it's down past her butt. So she and her fellow sister are in this like white garment, and for the first time I see her hair, and it's all the way down, right? And so she walks up and she takes this golden pair of scissors and she gives it to the bishop who's going to cut the hair, and he takes it and he throws it down the aisle, and she has to walk and get it 3 times before he touches her.
That's incredible.
That's
cool. Like something about that's so beautiful.
Yeah. Are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this? Now, RCIA is a little like that. It's not like Catholics are going to baptize you or bring you into the church right away.
No.
It turns out.
Yeah. It's a whole thing.
I want to get to that. I want to get to more of your faith journey.
Yeah.
But I want to take a little pause. We're going to take a quick break here, but I want to tell everybody watching right now, we are really close to 500,000 subscribers. Honestly, I used to like getting the subscribers because it felt good to have that many subscribers, but honestly, it allows me to maybe bring bigger names in and other people who otherwise wouldn't come on. So I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe, click that bell button if you like the show, and we'll see how quickly we can get up to it. We'll take a break and we'll be back soon. Boom.
Any sinner is capable of being a great saint. And any saint is also capable of being a great sinner, a great sinner, a great sinner, a great sinner.
I got to tell you guys about my new favorite app. It's called Ascension, and it's by Ascension Press. This is the #1 Bible study app, in my opinion. And you can go to ascensionpress.com/Fradd. Go there, and so that way they know that we sent you. It is absolutely fantastic. It has the entire Bible there, very well laid out. The whole Bible is read to you by Father Mike Schmitz, or just sections of the Bible. It has the catechism there. It's cross-referenced absolutely beautifully. It's really actually quite difficult to explain to you how good this is. Just download it and check it out for yourself. It even has over 1,600 frequently asked questions about Scripture. So if you go to Genesis 1, you might have a question about evolution. Well, there's a drop down right there. You can read an article that'll help you understand it. I went through it with the guys at Ascension the other day, and my jaw was just, it was dropped. It was absolutely amazing. It's had tens of thousands of 5-star reviews. Again, go to ascensionpress.com/Fradd. It also has all of their amazing Bible studies. So I remember back in the day, I had a big DVD case of Jeff Caven's Bible studies. Well, it's all there on the app. So go download it right now. Please go to ascensionpress.com/Fradd. I want to tell you about a course that I have created for men to overcome pornography. It is called strive21.com/Matt. You go there right now, or if you text STRIVE to 66866, we'll send you the link. It's 100% free. And it's a course I've created to help men, to give them the tools to overcome pornography. Usually men know that porn is wrong. They don't need me or you to convince them that it's wrong. What they need is a battle plan to get out. And so I've distilled all that I've learned over the last 15 or so years as I've been talking and writing on this topic into this one course. Think of it as if you and I could have a coffee over the next 21 days and I would kind of guide you along this journey. That's basically what this is. It's incredibly well produced. We had a whole camera crew come and film this. And I think it'll be a real help to you. And it's also not an isolated course that you go through on your own, because literally tens of thousands of men have now gone through this course. And as you go through the different videos, there's comments from men all around the world encouraging each other, offering to be each other's accountability partners and things like that. Strive21, that's strive21.com/Matt, or as I say, text STRIVE to 66866 to get started today. You won't regret it.
Any sinner is capable of being a great saint. And any saint is also capable of being a great sinner, a great sinner, a great sinner, a great sinner. Therefore, of character development is the realization of this power that there is in each and every one of us, for good and for evil, good and for evil, good and for evil, good and for evil. And the good Lord would have us lay hold of what is worst in ourselves. Do not think that people who have virtue and kindness and other great talents just came by these things naturally. They had to work at them very hard, at them very hard, at them very hard, at them very hard. Any sinner is capable of being a great saint, being a great saint. And any saint is also capable of being a great sinner, a great sinner, a great sinner, a great sinner.
Back.
There we
now,
go.
I didn't offer you another espresso, but you said you didn't want one earlier.
I'm going on fizzy water.
We can get you one if you want one.
No, I'm okay.
These cups are
These are great.
Yeah, you like them? Someone
Yeah.
from Steubenville made them.
Really?
Yeah, just a local.
I love that.
Now, listen, tell us about this sword on your face, because I know it has to do with the Lord of the Rings.
That's
and
right.
I want to know how that happened and
So-
when you got excited enough about Lord of the Rings to be like, I'd like that on my head.
So I'm a huge Lord of the Rings guy. When I was young, I read The Hobbit. That was my introduction.
Good.
Which is good.
Yeah.
You don't want to read The Lord of the Rings first. You want to
Yeah.
go Hobbit first. So I read The Hobbit and I was like, oh, everything's different now. This is one of those moments. And
How old were you?
I must have been so young. 9?
So I love it. So
I was a reader. I was
okay.
like you, Matilda. Have you ever seen
Yeah,
that movie?
yeah.
Like I read a crazy amount.
Yeah.
We used to have this reading program at the middle school where if you like read a book, you could take a test on it. And if you passed the test, you got points. And I read every book in the library. Every book. Like I read like 50 plus books a year now.
That is remarkable.
Yeah, I love to read. So I like crush. So The Lord of the Rings is huge for me. So I read The Hobbit and then I read Lord of the Rings and I was like, okay. Well,
And how old were you when you read Lord of the Rings?
I read Lord of the Rings when I was like 11 or
That
12.
is amazing, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember being excited about Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings at the same time.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got farther into Harry Potter and I read Lord of the Rings and I read Return of the King. I remember I finished it and I go, oh, okay. So this is what literature could be. I'm out. Or fantasy, like, okay.
Yeah, she's a good writer. Don't get me wrong. Harry Potter's very well written. And I'm sure it's a great story. But once you've read The Lord of the Rings or Dostoevsky, it's very difficult to go backwards.
Yeah. And there's a lot of... Then I read Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
And then I'm reading also... And I'm like, okay, come on. This is it, And so I'm reading this stuff. And Lord of the Rings is great. Then I found out about the Silmarillion. And I read it. And it's kind of like the Bible. I'm like, I got to read this slow. And like, I got to think about it. I got to read it. When you read and you get like... you get on autopilot and you finish a page, you go, I gotta go back. I gotta reread that page. Dang it. I was imagining.
That's why I hate listening to audiobooks, because my mind always drifts and then it's not as easy to return to where you were, whereas with the pages you kind of know where you drift.
Sometimes I get so into it that I'm not even thinking about something else. I'm like in the world. I can induce daydreams. When I was a kid, I literally had a problem with it where they're like, you daydream too much. And now as an adult, I can like just sit with music and daydream. Like it was impossible to punish me as a child. You would like go sit in the corner and I would like, awesome. I'm just going to go to dream world where like my daydreams are real to me. It's an actual medical condition. So anyway,
wow.
so I'm there, And so, I read Lord of the Rings, I read the Silmarillion, I'm having to read it and then stop. And the Silmarillion is beautiful. Tolkien's extended works, the history of Middle Earth, all these things, they're so wonderful because they're told in a history, like a historian in Middle Earth talking about ages gone by. It's like 2 steps removed. It's perfect.
I remember the first time I read, what is it, on concerning hobbits, like the first chapter of The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
You read it and then you're like, whoa, is there a lot that I've missed out on?
Yeah.
Because you just get immersed into the world. Yeah.
It's so good. So these histories, they give you just enough that you can sit with it and imagine it. Almost like reading about Caesar's campaign in Gaul. Almost like reading about Alexander, all these events that I think are so like Charlemagne and I'm just like imagining how all this is happening and it's like firing me up. And so Lord of the Rings changes my life and it becomes this thing that I'm crazy obsessed with. And I consume everything. I'm reading Tolkien's letters. I'm going online and looking for like Xeroxes of all his letters. I'm going nuts on it. Every piece of Tolkien content. I'm reading fan fiction. I'm playing video games. So I go nuts for Tolkien. The movies come out. They're all right. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
They take out...
well, it's kind of like what we were talking about, like great author next to mediocre author.
Yeah.
It's like that. If you've tasted the pure beauty of Tolkien, watching anything, even if it approximates it better than something else, is nothing.
Yeah.
Or something, but not enough.
So I enjoy these things. And so anyway, I used to have a friend with a gun tattooed on his face. And he was a scary guy. And
Found it.
He's very tough. A very, very scary guy. And so I always thought it was funny to have tough guy tattoos. And so, which is why I have a lot of nerdy tattoos, almost as like I don't even need to try. You guys are being ridiculous. And so I always joked that I would get a sword.
Okay.
Like, you have the gun, I'm gonna get a sword. I'll sword you, bro. And so I got older, and my first special does great, and my second special comes out, and it's good too. And there was this moment in my life where I thought, when my second special comes out, my career is over. It will not do good, and I will simply vanish into the night,
right?
And everything will be over, and that'll be fine. I'm still to this day kind of like, it'll be okay when I go back to a regular job. This has been more than I could ever imagine I would get. And so I do the second one and it does even better. I'm like, I gotta reward myself. And I'm like, what's the craziest thing I've ever wanted? A sword on my face. And then I go, what else? Tolkien.
Wait, is this after the first Dry Bar special?
Yeah.
Oh, so you didn't have the sword?
I didn't have the sword until after.
Okay.
So I got Andoril tattooed on my face, the shards of Narsil. Yeah. And so I got it. I love it. It's my favorite. Most people think it's a cross, which I'm happy. I think it's like a dual meaning almost. Yeah. It's sick. So Yeah.
Big Tolkien fan.
Big Tolkien fan. I love Tolkien. And then I have the Witch King tattooed on me, and I've got the Tree of Gondor tattooed on me. Big fan of Tolkien. Love all of his work. And he was another inroad into Catholicism for me.
Right.
You know? And then he hated allegory, but you can't help but see how he was affected. And like, you know, there's guys like Tulkas, the Valar, who defeats Morgoth. And even though he's just a minor Valar and not a Iluvatar, he takes down the Dark Lord. How you can't compare that to Michael, St. Michael, I don't know.
Yeah, so I've heard that he hated allegory. I understand that. And I can actually sympathize with it. When I read C.S. Lewis's work, sometimes it feels too much on the nose.
Yeah.
Except his kid fiction, I mean.
Yeah.
But, you know, you read the first chapter of the Silmarillion, and how is that not allegory for the creation story? Or maybe it's not. Maybe not as allegory because it just is a creation story.
I think it's Europe's pagan past mixed with its Christian future, because Iluvatar isn't pure love. I think that he loves his creations, but he's very hands off. He created the Valar, and he kind of left the Valar to their own devices on Arda. And our God is very present in all of our lives. And also we're made in his image. Eru Iluvatar, he created elves first, and dwarves aren't even a creation of Eru. They're a creation of Manwë, who wanted to he wanted to copy his father. He wanted to create life as well. That's the story. Manwë and Melkor, who or Morgoth as he's later called, they are parallels because they both want to create like their father, but one creates, sees the error of his ways, accepts his father's love and forgiveness, and moves on. So he creates the dwarves. He creates 7 dwarves, but they can only be alive when he's around. He can't quite create life. He can get close, but he can't quite. And so Eru finds him and goes, "What are you doing with these weird little naked bearded guys? These guys are wild. You made these? What the heck?" And then he's like, you can't do this. And Manwë's like, "My bad. I just thought I would try." They can't even do anything when I'm not around. And Eru goes, "I take pity on these creatures," and he breathes life into the dwarves. And so he allows the dwarves to exist, but they only exist because Manwë of Valar wanted them to, and because Eru took pity on them. He saw like, well, these are a creation, my grandsons, and I'll love them and breathe life into them. So now they're a whole thing, which is why they are kind of like elves. They're more powerful than humans, which are sort of the end-all be-all of Eru's plan for Arda. So anyway, Melkor wants to create, right? He becomes discordant as they sing the song of creation. I always like to imagine they're like singing these beautiful hymns, and Melkor's like, bum, 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 you know, like, and then a bunch of course, the Valar fall with Melkor, and which is the creation story. It's pretty spot on. And so Melkor creates, but he can't quite create either, but he twists. Yeah. He gets around needing Eru to breathe life into his creations by twisting them and making them evil. And so he makes orcs and all these other foul things. And then there's like interesting things that you don't consider, like the fact that tree ents are a living representation of nature, and they're like a beautiful representation of nature, where trolls, they turn to stone. They're a representation of rock, of nothing. They're like a twisted sense of nature, because ents return to the trees, trolls return to the rock. Excellent. Like, and so anyway, you got all this stuff, and
so Melkor's creating.
Melkor
or is he distorting?
He's distorting. It's not quite clear if he's creating new things. Tolkien often says he's distorting what has been. So
I was of the impression that the orcs were kind of distorted elves. Is that not the case?
There's 2 schools of thought. I think he kind of retconned himself and then unretconned himself, and there's letters. So there are people who think that they're distorted elves, and there are people who think that they are twisted creations of life, and so it's hard to tell. And there are different types of orcs, and there are half orcs, which is an implication that we don't even need to consider because it's very bad. But another reason that Tolkien kind of quite didn't do Christianity in his world is because he's dealing with very little gray area. It's total and complete, pure, unredeemable evil versus good. Whereas our God, no one is unredeemable. Yeah. So I think that's a beautiful distinction. And it's kind of an interesting, it's what makes it fantasy, is that there is pure, irredeemable evil versus good. And now you're ontologically evil and we can fight you with everything we have. And that's an interesting thing to think about. Yeah. But yeah,
you're going to fit so in with many Catholics. Getting super pumped about Tolkien.
Yeah, I love Tolkien. He's my guy. So, but yeah, orcs are, twisted elves. I like to think that he found elves and some unfortunate elves when they were made during the creation because they lived in darkness at first. The world had no light for a time, and the elves lived in darkness, and they had like this colony, and they were afraid of the trees. They didn't quite understand what's going on. Melkor was in there, and he was plucking them up. And so he created the first group of orcs, and then those elves, who are themselves magical and capable of great deeds and sort of creation in a way, they propagated what later becomes the orcs, and how and why they do it is a mystery to all of us. And so we don't really understand. And I kind of think it's better that way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get into your faith story. But before I do, I want to say that I am so excited to share with all y'all watching that the College of St. Joseph the Worker is now officially certified and accepting applications for the 2024 academic year. Based right here in downtown Steubenville, Ohio, the college offers one simplified program so you can graduate with a Bachelor of Arts in Catholic Studies, training in a skilled trade, the opportunity for a well-paid job, and no crippling debt. Personally, I find that too many men in particular struggle to find good, dignified, and noble work with their college degree. So why not do what Jesus did? At the College of St. Joseph the Worker, they are ready to reclaim the true promise of higher education. So come visit us here in Steubenville and take a tour of the College of St. Joseph the Worker. You can schedule that tour using the link in the description. Also, you can learn more about this excellent college, collegeofstjoseph.com. There'll be a link in the bio. Please check these guys out. I really hope my sons and daughters perhaps go there. collegeofstjoseph.com. So, you're becoming a Catholic.
I am deep into the process.
So I know you said that faith was something that happened to you.
Yeah, I think that.
But what does that mean?
I made a choice.
Yeah.
But I think the antecedent, like what led up to it, was kind of like, oh, hold on here. I'm very open to this, and this is kind of going on in my life. Yeah. What happened to kind of soften my heart and get me here?
Yeah.
So I mean, my conversion story, I mean, I'll try to give you like the beginning to the end of my ideas about God, and then we'll get to conversion. Okay. So beginning, really bad childhood, really, really bad. And my mom had two separate phases. I remember distinctly where she was Christian and we were going to church, and we had that painting everyone sees of Jesus knocking on a door.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
So that image is burned into my brain. He was always in our home right there. So again, ethnically Jewish, but like my mom had these Christian phases, and I also my first job ever as a small child was packing envelopes for an evangelical anti-abortion center and sending out letters. I don't know. I didn't understand as a child. I do remember me and the other kids who helped there, because the guy who owned it, his sons worked there. That's how I ended up working there. We Xeroxed our butts, and nice. we all got in big trouble for that. He was like, "It's not that you did it; it's that your butts were on my machine, and they were, and it was
Yeah.
really funny. What a cool guy. And so, yeah, so we had these phases where we went to church, but I never was baptized. My mom wanted me to make the choice, and I was a little older, so she was like, "You're not a baby. I think you're old enough that I want you to make the choice." So she would kind of like tell me about who Jesus was, and I would go to classes as a kid, but they were like Baptist, and Baptist classes for kids are pretty much about the actual Bible. You don't learn a lot about like faith and what God means in your life and prayer. You learn like, what was Noah up to? How old was he? That's crazy. That kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And so I got like a biblical education. I did not get a faith education. And then I had that. And then we did one more when I was like 9 to 11. And that one, there was this Baptist preacher who lived in a trailer, and he would go in a van and pick up everyone who wanted to come to church who didn't have a car. God bless him. What an amazing guy. And him and his family would take everyone, and then they would go back to his trailer, and he had this thing where all of his stuff would move. Mm-hmm. He would push everything he owned to two sides of his like big trailer, and like their beds and stuff in like this big living room area. And then that would become the pulpit, and then they would have a screen and they would do it, and then the kids would be in this area. Yeah. And it's not mass. Baptist church is very like, they separate kids and adults, and you do the whatever. So I would go to the kids classes, and then he would have like his older daughter ran the kids class. So this whole family just had their own little church. Yeah. Pretty sick, actually. Pretty cool for them. And so I had that, and I got more of a faith education there, sort of just like whatever. But I don't know. I remember kind of just being like, ugh, I'm going to get breakfast today. That's cool, I guess. And they might give me food after. So I was more like I was food motivated like a dog. I was food motivated. And so then I stopped going to that. I just never thought about it. I was a child. Life is very hard. A lot of bad things happened to me. You know, I was neglected, and then my new stepfather came, and he was very abusive in ways that I was tortured as a child, basically. You know, me and my brothers used to be made to fist fight each other when we just because we would have to fight. You know, feet smash with a hammer type stuff is the worst stuff you can imagine. And so I became very mad at God. And I used to have this, I wanted to be an atheist, but I also, bad things would happen, and my instinct would be to ask God for help. Then I realized I only ever want to talk to God when I need help. And I hated that. Ooh, it bothered me. It made me mad. It made me feel weak. It made me feel stupid. And it made me be like, this sucks. What is God even about? I only talk to him when I'm in trouble. So I remember making a distinct choice as a child never to ask God for help if I was in trouble. I would think about him just naturally, an innate thought, but I would be like, no, I refuse to ask you. I refuse to ask you for help. Now I know it doesn't matter if you ask, you know, he's there, whether obviously I'm thinking about him. But so I endure this life of violence. And it's pretty rough, and I make it out the other end. And now I'm into philosophy. I'm into the new atheists. I do Zen. Ooh, that's cool. I'm into self-help or whatever. Watch everything Hitchens ever does. Read The God Delusion. I actually didn't like the book. Thought it was bad. But I'm doing that. And then I go from being like a staunch, like, mad at everyone atheist to kind of like what am I doing? This sucks. Mormons are the nicest people that I've ever met. They took care of me when I was a kid and fed me. You know, what am I mad about? So I decide I'm an 8 of 10 atheist. That's what I'm doing now. I'm doing that thing. And so then over time I become...
Sorry, you're a what atheist?
An 8 of 10.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Gotcha.
Which is such a stupid way of just saying I'm agnostic, you know, but whatever. So it's the idea that I'm an atheist. I'm still like, I'm a philosopher and an intellectual, but maybe, you know, come on, you're an agnostic at that point. You're just afraid to say it. You're afraid of the concept of God, admit it. And so I do that, and I become more and more open to things, and I start to make Muslim friends. I'm very good friends with so many of my Mormon friends who never lost their faith. They kept faith in God, and then they have beautiful families and stuff, and I'm kind of like, Now I'm so deep into punk rock and alt culture, and it's wildly hedonistic. It's full of people who are angry at everyone for not thinking like them, but also simultaneously mad at everyone for not being open-minded enough. And they're miserable. All these people are miserable. You know, they're like trying to promote this lifestyle where hedonism and doing what you want and self-care and all this other stuff is the point. This is the point of life, is to be happy. And as long as you don't hurt anyone, who cares, and all this other stuff. But they're miserable. Then you look at them deeper and you go, you're like deeply sad. There's no fulfillment. So I'm like, okay, something's going on. And I start to reconsider sort of my views about life and this kind of thing in my alternative culture and what I've been a part of. And then I start to move more towards like, all right, well, maybe God is good and it's goodness. And I just sort of be open to it. And like, maybe magic is real. Ghosts are real. I start to just open up to like, you know, just whatever, spirituality and stuff. And then that's where I sit for a long time. Just sort of like comfortable in the idea that the supernatural is real, and that's okay. And maybe people are having religious experiences, and maybe they're good, and I think that's good. Now I come around and I go, religion is good. It's better than it's bad. I believe that. So last year, my grandfather passed away. Now, my grandfather's the most important person in my life, or he was. He's the best man I've ever known. He's a truly good man, a saint. I'm not joking. He was true goodness. He grew up a Swiss immigrant. He fought in World War II. He married his wife after knowing her for not very long. He stayed with her for 55 years, took care of her when she was sick till she died. He married another woman after she passed away. She got sick, took care of her until she died, never let his children down, never let his wife down, never spoke ill of anybody, was kind to everyone he ever met, was so good to me. I remember how I told you that I went to Christmas and my step grandparents purposefully didn't get me gifts. My grandfather made sure every birthday and every Christmas to get me and my brothers the exact same thing, so that we were never better or worse than the other. You could count on $20 and that remote control car, or every Christmas we would all get the same thing. He would never forget any of us. If he took one of us on a trip, he would take each of us individually or all of us together. He was perfectly fair, truly the kindest man. Good. He grew up a conservative immigrant from Switzerland, never once asked me about my tattoos, never asked me about weird hair or piercings or any of my phases. He loved me unconditionally. He never made me feel awkward. He never questioned me. Truly such a good man. So I love him, and he's so important to me. We become very close near the end of his life, when I'm more of a man, you know, because when I was young, I was all over the place. I never really hung out with him. So he's very old. He lived to be almost 101. So he begins to die, and I go, well, I don't care about my work. I don't care about my career. I don't care about my job. I'm moving to Utah to be with him as he dies. So I moved to Utah. Me and my brother and my mom make it our mission to be with him as much as possible till he passes away. He's, by the way, so unreal tough. The toughest man I've ever met. He worked like 13 hours a day for like 50 something years. Was in the Dairy Workers Union. He had been working since he was like 13, full-time job. Crazy guy. So he has a heart attack at like a 99 or 100 years. He had a heart attack at 100 years old. We were like, oh, he's dead. I go to just see him right before he dies. Makes a full recovery. And then they're like, well, he's on a hospice. He's clearly going to die. His pacemaker stopped working. So he should just die any day now. And he just refused to die. He was fine. He's walking around now. He recovered totally. We're like, what? No, you're supposed to be dead, man. Just go. You want to die. Because he would be like, I should have died like 15 years ago. No one I know is alive. You guys don't need me here. So I'm just like, all right. So he told me that I was like, just die. And he was like, dying's a choice and I refuse to make it. God can come get me. So I was like, woo, all right. If the Japanese weren't going to get him, no one was, you know what I mean? And so he was hardcore. And so he lives for like 6 months and finally he passes away. We're all with him. He passes away peacefully. It's beautiful. I thought my whole world was gonna end, and I just felt kind of at peace with it. We had so much preparation, and he was so brave, so courageous in death that I just, as a man, couldn't allow myself to fall into despair in any way.
So he was cognizant the whole time.
And right up until the last 2 days. Truly so courageous that I just couldn't be affected I couldn't fall into despair. Of course I was sad. I wept and all these other things, but like no despair. Interesting. I remember asking my mom, I go, should we get him a priest? Which is a weird thing to even think of. I don't know why I thought of it. And she goes, no, I don't think so. And I was like, well, okay. And so later I'm having these like, he passes away and we're all fine. We stay together as a family. We're doing well and we're staying strong and everything's going good. And I begin to have these weird dreams about going to church and just like talking to people who aren't there. And I'm like, all right, that's odd to have that more than once. I don't dream a lot. Yeah. I'm not a big dreamer. I'm a daydreamer, that's where I get all my dreaming done. So I'm like, that's odd. And I'm like compelled to go to church in a way that I don't know how to describe. You know how when you're single and you see a very beautiful woman, you're like, oh, like you're drawn to speak to her in a way. Yes. That's how I feel. I'm like, this is insane. I've never even, why would I go to church? I have a very good life. I don't care. And so it's like odd. I'm like having this feeling like I need to go, and I start to like read about church, and I'm just kind of like looking, I'm like, why would I feel this way? I like to, if I feel something, I like to ask myself questions and go through it very point by point. So I'm like, okay, it's weird, whatever. And then I'm like starting to just feel like during the day, like you should go to church. You should. And I'm imagining this one time I went to a Catholic church. I just went in and I had like a kind of a beautiful experience. And I thought these are just beautiful people. And this is an ancient, beautiful place. That was what that was. So I'm like, I should go. And I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, I go to this doctor's appointment one day. And I'm leaving and I'm in like Provo, Utah. And I'm like, I'm going to go to church. It's like noon. I was like, I should just go to one. I'm just going to do it. Whatever. I'm compelled. I'm not, it's wild how this poll has me. Why am I thinking about this? It's an intrusive thought that's so powerful. So I'm like, all right, fine. I look up a church on my phone and there's like a Catholic church down the road. Now, mind you, I have no idea how this works. In my mind, I'm like, it's going to be closed. I guess I'll just go and then it'll be closed and I'm home free. I did it. I show up. It's a Catholic church. It's open. There's people in there, There's people in there. I think they might have been doing adoration. And so I'm like, I'm kind of walking and I'm like, I don't know where to go. And I walk into the chapel and I'm like, all right. And then there's like, all these Hispanic women and then they have veils on and they're like in deep prayer. And I'm like, yeah, I know. They're
like holding the church together.
Yeah. And I'm like, ooh, intimidating, it's scary. I don't know I don't want to interrupt them. So I'm like trying to creep into the thing. And I like take a seat in the back and I sit at the pew and I kind of look up and I just go, now what? And I'm kind of like, what am I doing here? And I'm like, all right, let's do it. Let's just do it. And I put the kneeler down and I get on my knees and I put my hands up and I'm just looking at the cross. I'm looking at Jesus on the cross and I just start to cry. And I have this insane, like I'm not looking at anything. I don't mean to be like, I know it sucks when it's almost embarrassing to be like, oh, my conversion story is like, I had a supernatural experience. But like, because some people don't. Yeah. I know a lot of Catholics who are like, oh man, am I like, you have this like whole thing and then you have a supernatural story. I just feel good about it, you know? And it's like, but that's not it. I don't know. It is what it is. I think God gives you what you need, and he gives you just enough. Your free will is so important. Yeah. He loves you. Without free will, there's no love. So you have to give just enough. I think this is my theory that your free will maintains. So you always need to be able to make the choice. You always have to make the choice every minute of every day, every hour of every hour, every morning when you wake up. There's a choice to make. And if you get too much, you're not going to make that choice anymore. And it doesn't become a choice. And so I'm like, okay, I have this crazy experience, like this blinding light. And then I just start to weep and I just feel like I'm not alone. And I've been alone my whole life. I'm alone a lot. I'm alone when I'm around lots of people. I feel alone on stage. I felt alone in my childhood, and I'm weeping and I'm crying. And then I look over and Mary is there, and it's over for me. I am now.
Is this a statue or a vision?
A statue.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. This is a statue of Mary. And I have a vision of her. I'm not seeing her literally, but she's like superimposed in my memory to the point where I'm seeing her in front of me, and she's the mother, and it's this like feminine energy, and this it's this pure love, and it's like something I like. I don't even know how to explain. I don't know how to explain it. I truly don't. And it's like, it's the experience with a mother I'd never had and I needed. And I just started crying like so hard that these like Hispanic women were like, what the heck? And people are looking over like, is everything all right? And I'm just like, full like heaving sobs, and everyone's cool about it though. They just like, this Hispanic woman looks over and is like, yeah, it makes sense, and just like keeps praying the rosary, and it was so funny just have everyone kind of like look at me at once, and I was like, didn't even care.
You probably had some powerful prayers coming from those Hispanic grandmas.
Yeah, the concept of someone praying for someone else never occurred to me my whole life until recently, and so I'm crying, I'm having this vision of Mary, and she's like, I'm like bathed in warm love, and it's this experience that's so earth-shattering, and it's the moment. Everything is different now. It's one of my few everything is different now moments, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, that was the craziest thing. And I'm talking to God, and I'm saying like, I'm so sorry. I want to be better. These are all my faults. This is where I've been and what I've done. Like, do you love me? Like, and I just feel loved for the first time ever in a way that I truly have never felt, and I needed. And I leave, and immediately I'm like fighting this. I'm like, okay, well, I just had like a psychedelic experience. I just had an experience, and I had some bad steak. I had some whatever. And so I go home, and I don't tell my brother or anybody about it. And I can't stop thinking about it. And I'm just thinking about Mary, and I keep like getting emotional, just imagining her. Like I keep hearing her say, I love you. And it's so real, and it's just like so powerful. It's so hard to describe how it feels. And she just keeps telling me she loves me. And it's like hard to, I'm getting emotional now even thinking about it. It's so pure and so good and so special, and she's so perfect. And it's the first time I'd ever seen a woman, and felt that way. I see women, and I have problems with lust, and I have problems with, our culture I've brought in. You see women in such a way, and I'm seeing this person, and I'm just seeing her as like a whole person and a woman for the first time in a very pure way. And I keep seeing her, and she keeps reassuring me that she loves me, and it's like, it's so beautiful. I'm like, okay, all right, fine. I'm going to go again. I'll go to church again one more time, and now we will see. And so, before I go to church, I talked to my mom, and the conversation was nothing about Christianity. I don't remember how she said it, but she said, yeah, Grandpa was Catholic. He disliked the church, I think. And I go, huh.
A lot of Catholics do. It's okay.
I had no idea that my grandfather was Catholic. He was baptized Catholic. He obviously went to Catholic school as a child, or he went to church. He might have been confirmed. I don't know. My grandfather's Catholic. Okay, weird. And so now I'm like, and mind you, he's not my biological grandfather, but he's my grandfather, and so he's Catholic. This blows my mind. I was just in a Catholic church. Mary keeps appearing to me and telling me she loves me in my imagination. This is freaking me out. And so I'm like, all right, fine. And so I look up a talk one day while I'm driving, and it's funny because I actually got a ticket because I wasn't paying attention, and it's Father Mike Schmitz. I got a ticket. That guy owes me $80. I ran a stop sign not thinking.
I'll text him.
Yeah, let him know. He owes me $80. It was like a rolling stop, but anyway, in the talk he was talking about. I just loaded up like some talk, and I just clicked on the first one, and I just wanted to learn. I had no specific questions, and it was by providence. It was randomly a talk about praying for the dead,
Okay.
which is a concept I was like, what in the world? And so you Catholics pray for the dead. And he talks about these Bible verses and how it's like a beautiful thing. It's something, I can't remember his name in the Bible. He's at a graveyard and he's praying for the dead, and the dead pray for us. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm like, okay, pray for the dead. And so then I realized I'm going to go to church and pray for my grandfather. I'm going to talk to him. And so I do it. I go to church, and I go to the main church in Salt Lake City downtown, the
Cathedral?
The cathedral, yeah, and it's the Madeline, and it's like this huge, beautiful church. I walk in, I'm kind of nervous, and I'm like, oh, great, it's open. Now I have to go in, and I'm getting in there, and I go sit down, and there's a lot of people in this one. And they're all just praying. And I'm like, all right, what's going on with this? I sit down and I'm like, all right, let's give it a spin. And I'm like, the cynical parts of me are fighting everything. I sit down and I go, hello, Grandpa. And I just start weeping immediately. And I'm like, I just hope you're okay. I think about you and I'm praying for him. And I was like, is that you? Are you telling me to go to church? Like, is Mary with you? What's going on up there? I don't even understand how this all works. And I was like, am I supposed to be here? Like, is this what you want from me? Is this stupid? Am I another person who's like, the story is like, oh, something bad happened and I became Christian. And it's just like, it's so embarrassing.
I leave my brain at the door. Accepting a myth to make me feel better.
Exactly. He just did this because he wants to make sense of this. And I'm like, I don't want to be that person. I'm rational. But this is real. This is happening to me. And I'm like, I'm like, if this is, I don't know if this is what you want from me, if you're praying for me or whatever, but like, I'm here. Is this good? And then I'm like, if God's up there, take care of him. And it's like affecting me a lot. And I have another experience. And then Mary's there and she's like, it's okay. You're okay. And Jesus is that, and I'm like feeling all this and it's incredibly real. It's so real that it's like, I've done psychedelic drugs. It's not that. It's one more step. Stop doing acid. Go to church. You're about to have some wild, real stuff happen to you, and I'm like touched. Like in a way that is physical. It's real. This is happening to me. And I leave and I was like, all right, I'm Catholic now, I guess. And at that point, I'm like, well, I got to pray and I got to change my life. And my life is, I am sinning up a storm in my whole life, but especially recently, like my life is one big sin. And so I'm like, I got to change, and I'm like, I gotta do something. And I'm like, all right, so I got to read about the church. I got to figure this out. I think Catholicism is it. This is my grandfather's telling me, I didn't have vision. I felt compelled for this. And I'm a big rational guy. I'm a huge on history. So I start to read about the history of the church and I'm getting deep into it. I'm reading about, the popes and the catechism and the church's teachings, and they're falling in line with all these things I believe separate from the church about how we should live socially and how we should share our wealth and how we should take care of each other. And now I'm seeing, like, I've dedicated a lot of my life to politics, and I don't really want to talk about them, but the church is doing things that I advocate for on a real material level. There are missions with young people inside of them that are feeding the homeless. They are no phones. They're doing real stuff for real people. They're giving people hope, and that's way more than I can say for these political organizations I was involved with or thinking about, or no one in secular, it's doing what the church is doing, you know? And I'm like, wow, this is powerful. This isn't faith. This is a material thing. I can touch and feel and see this. And then I'm reading more about the church, and I'm reading about Mary, and I learned how to do the Hail Marys, and now this is becoming so important to me, and I'm learning about the saints, and then I figure out, I'm like, I should watch more videos. Mike Schmidt's got me. Yeah. That's a good video. I'm looking up him. Who's this Matt Fradd guy? He looks dorky, you know. And then Pints of Aquinas, and then some of your guests deeply affect me, and I start to learn. And then I run into apologists. I run into not Trent Horn, though I do
Scott
like
Hahn,
Trent.
Tim Staples, Jimmy Akin.
Jimmy Akin
is the man.
Jimmy Akin, you absolute hero. Jimmy Akin, I've consumed.
We will send this to him.
50 hours of Jimmy Akin speaking. I've read all of his books. I crush Jimmy Akin content. He speaks so kindly and so beautifully and with so much charity. And I'm so used to Jesus being this like, do it or you go to hell. And Catholics are, I just feel this charitability and the spirit of Jesus in the church, and the kindness, and there's this thing in politics, and I don't mean to keep bringing it back there, but they were a big part of my life, but where especially liberals, whatever.
You can go into it.
I'm not a fan.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of either side, but liberals especially are very annoying because they want to be right. They don't want to win.
Okay.
The Catholic Church wants to win. Your soul is on the line. People eating is on the line. People's mental health is on the line. People's world is on the line. And the church is willing to come down to people and meet them. Jimmy doesn't talk to you. He doesn't talk down to you. Many Catholics I've seen that talk to people aren't telling you you're going to go to hell. They're telling you you're saved. That's a huge difference from how I perceived Christianity. Catholics are telling you, you are saved. I love you. Jesus loves you. We are here for you. Other people are saying, you are bad. It's giving people the good news, you know, love is how you win. And so I'm seeing this and I'm like, yes, this is what I'm about. This is aligning. This is crazy. This is all falling into place. And it's all coming together, and I'm like, yeah, this is crazy. And in the meantime, I'm praying, and I'm trying to like undo all these sinful things I'm doing, you know. And I'm like, all right, we got to defeat lust. And you know, it's funny. I actually read your book.
Which one?
The Porn Myth.
Yeah.
Way before I knew who you were.
Yeah.
I read it. I'm the guy who likes the album, and I go, I like song 3.
Yeah.
I read your book, but I didn't know your name or who you were. I just read the book.
Good. I'm glad.
And I had a hunch that porn was bad. I read your book, and I was like, okay, so porn is evil. But I convinced myself like, oh, well, certain porn is good because it's made by the creator or whatever. Yeah. And I realized like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this all the way. Like, the church sets these things out, and even if it's, in my mind, even if it's not right about something, I have nothing to lose by following that tenet. It's so obvious to me that this is a positive way to live, that even if it's wrong about something, even if we get it wrong sometimes, it's going to, as a whole, make me a better person.
You're not going to be on your deathbed wishing you watched more porn.
Yes.
Wasting your life.
Yes. Yeah. It doesn't matter if the church is wrong about that. What matters is the whole of what we got going on is correct. Yeah. I think it is right. Yeah. Wildly right about that, to be clear. Wildly right. But so I not only stop watching porn, I start unlusting my Instagram and undoing just any image of a woman who I would be ashamed for Mary to see. I start to like, Mary's working in my life to heal my problems with women and to make me see how the things I didn't even know were negative I was feeling, and I'm removing these things, and I find myself loving my sisters more. And I say sisters just in terms of all women everywhere, and it's healing me in a way that I didn't even know I needed. And it's tangible. So much of what the church is doing is working through me literally because I have faith, but now I have this direction. You know, I've been exposed to sola scriptura. No. There's more. There's the whole of the church, and these things are healing my life. And so I see you and I'm reading these guys and I'm like, okay, this is awesome. And I start going to RCIA and I've just crushed out. Like, I've read so many books, Matt. I've read so much, like Gregory Pine, Scott Hahn, like Trent Horn, all these guys, Aquinas. And now I'm seeing in the church that like the church does this beautiful thing where they're like, do you want logic? Hey, guess what? Believe in the Big Bang or argue in creationism. We think it's beautiful for you to have your opinion and we want you to disseminate that. That's God giving you logic. Put it to use. Do you want to see a saint's bones? This is a tangible, real person. Do you want to have an experience? Here you go. These are our saints. These are what they did. These are people to look up to aspire to. These are the rules. This is how you can be better. This is, and it's tangible. I can grab onto it. Do you love song? Here's some Gregorian chanting. Do you want to just like feel good with people your age? Here's some guitar mass with these people. Do you want to feel connected to your ancestors in a way that transcends space and time and makes you feel close in the love you have for your brothers from thousands of years ago? Here's Latin Mass. They felt that, Joan of Arc went to Latin Mass. Me and Joan of Arc we both know what it feels like to go to Latin Mass. That is an incredible feeling. That's something that is transcends time and space. That's something you can't find in our culture. That's real. She knew exactly how it feels to see these people say those words and do those actions. There is nothing different about her and I's experience. She's a saint. You know what I mean? Like and I look up to her. That I've read about her, even secularly. So these are all things that I'm like, the church is like, do you want that? You have it. Oh, do you want art? Look at this beautiful, we'll draw you in with beauty. We believe in beauty and art. And do you like history? We have all this stuff for you. Do you like people who admit their mistakes? We were wrong. Here's an evil pope. And guess what? The church survived. Guess what? The church is all of us. And it can't be stopped, because we're all together. And like, these are all just so beautiful. And like, even just me being way into heavy metal, then the church is like, hey, did you know that all of heavy metal imagery is just the concept of memento mori stolen? Do you know that the black metal's cool? Did you know that the most heavy metal building on earth is a church made of bones and we run it? Like that, it's just everything about, you realize how much of culture, and now Christ is everywhere. And I'm being so affected by all these people and all these things, and everything is different. And it's just changed my life in a way that is so permanent and so beautiful and so tangible that I'm like, oh, that's why Christians are annoying. That's why they're trying to tell me about it. That's why people are sharing it. And I'm almost like, had I heard Jimmy Akin 10 years ago, I don't know that I could have resisted. I don't know that I could have seen him speak so charitably, so beautifully, so kindly, so logically, with so much authority, because he's just speaking the truth. If I would have been able to like not listen, I would have at least had a hunch that I had to like look into this. And so, it's just this beautiful experience that I'm just so thankful for. And then it just makes me emotional even to think like, it took me so long to get to this point. And I'm almost so afraid of like, had I not gotten here? Yeah. But like, I have, but also I am here, and God knew I would get here. So it's just this beautiful thing. And then I learn about the concept of free will. I was so angry at God for letting evil happen. But you don't understand. Then you stop and think about it logically, and you think about God and the natural order of the world and how it has to exist so that free will can be maintained. And then to think about, like, I imagine myself as a father trying to, I'm a father. How difficult it would be to allow my children the space and breadth to learn with free will. to watch them make a mistake, you go, no, I'm not going to let you burn yourself. It's hot. Don't touch it ever. If you burn yourself, it physically hurts me. For God to love us so much that he puts us in a place, in a time where he allows us to exercise free will in such a total and absolute way is the definition of love to me. And I see that all the things I hated about him are actually reasons I love him. And it just makes sense. And I'm almost like, what happens next? Do I share this? Do I go places? That's why I messaged you. And I messaged many other people because I'm like, I have to be honest with myself about this and let people know, like, we're doing it together. Like, you're doing something really important. And I know for a fact you have days where you're like, this is a silly podcast and I'm up to nothing, or this is about my pride, or this is about I feel famous. And then you catch yourself and you go, ooh, that sucks. That's a lame guy thing to think. Or, because I feel those things with comedy and I go, no, stop. But you doubt yourself and like, you're doing something really good and you're working in people's lives without even knowing it, as am I, as are we all. And we're made in God's image and God works in our lives the same way. And we're doing a little piece of God's work by affecting each other separate from our material being right here, and that's like so beautiful. And I want to make sure people know that they're doing that. So that's a part of why I like messaged you, even why we're here right now. It's because I was like, oh, I love this guy. He's doing something incredible and he needs to like be reassured. I need reassurance so much. It's hilarious how much reassurance I need. I mean, even just going to mass with you, I needed the reassurance from Jesus. I've literally had like a Marian experience and I still need Jesus to come down and be like, I have you, you're safe and I love you and you're forgiven and it's all going to be okay. So we're so imperfect and so silly. Yeah. And so now I'm a Catholic. I'm working on it.
Praise God. Do you know the two patron saints? There might be more, but at least two patron saints of France are St. Joan of Arc and Therese of Lisieux.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at your face and I'm seeing Therese of Lisieux in the rose, but also the sword with Joan of Arc, who Therese of Lisieux admired, obviously, as a French woman and dressed up as.
Yes.
I got to go to her. Yeah.
I talked to a priest, Father Weta.
Yeah.
And he's so funny. Very
amazing.
Cool guy.
He's the last live streamer before Mike Schmitz we had on the show. People should check that out. Please put a link to this because, just real quick, put a link to this Thursday because I think people like, who is this guy? And so they didn't watch it.
Yeah.
But then when people watched it, they were like, I love this man so much, I can't even tell you. And the video is doing really well because he's so beautiful. And I was driving home from Seek and my wife started watching it. She just grabbed my arm while I'm driving, which is not a good idea because she just could not stand how much she loved this fella.
He's so cool. So he sits next to me, has no idea who I am. Just sits next to me. He goes, we're talking, he goes, oh, you're a comedian? And he goes, I have a lot of questions for you. And we start talking and I say something to him that he really likes and he pulls out a pen and paper and he goes, I'm going to take a note. He goes, no, I'm not going to take a note. That's lame. I just want to talk to you. I just want to have a conversation. And then I say something else. He goes, I'm going to have to take that note. And he's so funny. He's so kind and so cool, so profound. We had a really good conversation, but he stands up and he's about to leave and he goes, what does that rose mean? And I go, it has no meaning. I just got it because it's cool, which is true. I just got it because I like it. And I just wanted to like fill out that space. I just thought it would be cool. Yeah. And he goes, can I give it meaning? He asked me permission. I said, give it meaning and I will, that's the meaning. I will, for the rest of my life, that will be the meaning of this rose. Shoot. And he goes, that's St. Teresa of Lisieux's rose. St. Teresa of Lisieux. So this is her rose.
Praise God, man.
Yeah. Isn't that hilarious? I was like, all right, there we go.
Oh, praise the Lord, man. That's beautiful. How excited are you to make your first confession one day?
Oh, man. I know.
Father Boniface has got to be the priest, don't you think?
Yeah, I would love to.
Oh, he'll do it.
That's a good one. I should. I'm going to get baptized, and I've never been. So I'm told that I don't have to do confession until after I'm baptized.
Oh, right, of course.
And then I have to.
That's right.
I confess after that. So I was like, oh, good.
Yeah.
Like I've got a lot of stuff to say. It's not that I would be afraid to confess any sin, but who has that much time?
No, that's beautiful that you get to be baptized and just release it all.
Yeah.
And start from scratch. Praise the Lord.
I was talking to my RCIA director, and she was like, "Yeah,
And
you're
where
going
are
to
you
get baptized."
going to be baptized?
So I was going to be baptized in Brooklyn, New York, but I'm moving, and so I'm going to have to get a letter and stuff and transfer over to Utah, where I think I'll be baptized. But if that doesn't work out, I'll fly back to Brooklyn and be
Or
baptized.
Steubenville, just saying we could do
Or
that
Steubenville.
too,
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Our cool little Melkite mission here.
I would, if you guys would baptize me,
Well, I won't, but Father Peter absolutely would, wouldn't he? Although I think that might make you Melkite Catholic, give you Eastern, but maybe you want that. We'll see.
yeah. I mean, listen, as
We'll
long
talk
as I'm
about it.
Catholic,
We'll talk about it.
I would very much like to do that.
All right, let's stay in touch.
Yeah. Let's
We
stay
will.
in touch over it. Yeah.
Would it be okay if we took questions from our local supporters?
Please.
Jeff says his story kind of reminds me of Father Calloway's conversion. He might enjoy his conversion story on YouTube.
I've watched it.
Yeah?
Yeah. That guy, the hippie.
Surfing priest kind of guy.
Yeah,
who
yeah,
got kicked
yeah.
out of Japan
So
by the
funny.
government. How has literature influenced your comedy and your conversion, asks Sarah. Any authors you particularly admire or draw influence from?
There are a lot of authors. I mean, Frank Herbert, like Dune, obviously huge for me. Really big fan of that. Robert A. Heinlein, who wrote Starship Troopers. That's a big one as far as science fiction goes. Let's see, Robert Jordan from The Wheel of Time, obviously Tolkien. Literature affected my conversion. I don't know that it did. I think that as I was the two between after I went to church for the first time and tried to pray and had that experience, the couple days in between where I really fought it, which is crazy to think back on, that I could have that experience. The power of cynicism is so great and so ingrained, especially if you grow up secular and you want to resist. I was just so that during that time I was kind of like, oh, Tolkien is Catholic. That's right. Oh, my grandfather is Catholic. Oh, my ex-girlfriend is Catholic, and I really love her. I think she's a beautiful, good person. Oh, this person is Catholic, or this writer, or this poet, and it was sort of like this weird, like, dummy, listen, and so, I mean, that is a way that literature affected it. But as far as my comedy goes, I don't know that literature is affected. I guess I tell stories, and so I try hard to make my comedy feel like a campfire story when you're at Boy Scouts. That's really what I'm going for.
Yeah.
I want it to feel like me and you are at this table and I'm telling you, even if it's 500 people.
Yeah.
So
Aquinas Pius says, Shane, you mentioned that you have a love for the Blessed Virgin Mary. For a long time, due to my lack of faith and devotion, I felt ashamed to call her my Heavenly Mother. I can recall crying while praying the Memorare. If you don't mind, what initially drew you into Our Lady, and I think you may have just shared that. But you're welcome to take another stab at it.
I mean, it really was for no reason. I didn't know anything about her. I just know of like paintings. I know of her historically. I saw her in church and she simply reached out to me and revealed herself to me in a very real way. I mean, that's her thing, right? That's what she does. She just, I didn't even know Marian apparitions were a thing. I'd never heard of that. I didn't know people had those experiences. So after I had it, to understand that it's a thing that happens was another just so affirming. Like, how can we all be feeling this? How can someone who didn't even know it was possible then have an experience of someone else who talks like makes no sense. That's impossible, truly. And so, yeah, it was her. She just was like, hey, by the way, I love you. I'm your Heavenly Mother. I'm here for you. And I was like, okay, I'm crying a lot now.
Tony RVA says, Shane, thank you for sharing your story. Who was the most impactful in your journey towards Christ? What advice do you have for those of us who love the Lord and want to help others find him?
Who's the most impactful? You know what's funny? It might be like Christopher Hitchens, who just clearly wanted to be a good person and wanted to be a champion for reason. And I took every talk he ever said and stuff. But without him, I just wouldn't have kept God so present in my mind. They are fighting a losing battle by keeping God in the conversation. I truly believe the new atheists are responsible for the resurgence of Christianity currently. I think that without them, apathy is death. To remain apathetic is how the kingdom of heaven loses. The devil is about apathy. What does the exorcist say? To have an encounter with a demon is actually a blessing because it strengthens your faith, right? That was real. This happened to me, and it might have been a negative experience, and there's bad things about that, obviously, but how can you not believe now?
Yeah, in a way, the new atheists sort of we collectively went down this road where we all gave the middle finger to God and said all the worst things we could possibly say, and now that's kind of boring. We've done that. Like, we know where that ends, so we've done that all. So there's nothing you can invite me to in that regard that we haven't already been to, perhaps.
I don't think the new atheist shuffled us towards the hedonism and the progressiveness for progressive's sake and the negative things our society is up to right now. I think without them, God disappears from the conversation and we move into hedonism.
Yeah.
We moved into hedonism with God very present in the conversation. And granted, many of us sided with the new atheists, but God was still in the conversation and he remains so. And apathy is the negative. And so without him, I don't consider God for the entirety of my life. I don't come to become open to spirituality. I don't tell my mom, yeah, ghosts are real, because she thinks ghosts are real. And open myself up to that experience. I don't open myself up to spirituality. So, yeah.
Christopher Hitchens.
Christopher Hitchens, my man. I bet he's in heaven right now going, oh, embarrassing. Or not in heaven.
I hope he is. Mike T says, Shayne, welcome, brother. My very non-serious question for you.
Yeah, I love it.
Since converting to Catholicism, have you had to revise your strategies in Magic, the Gathering, at all to better align with the faith?
Well, I don't play blues, so I'm not a bad person. So no, I have not had to revise anything.
Ralph Raymond says, as our society is increasingly engulfed in entertainment, do you feel that comics have become today's modern day philosophers?
That's a thing people say a lot, and it shouldn't happen. Like, comics are so stupid. It should be
Andrew Willard Jones. That's the philosopher. Or others, yeah.
I genuinely think, I understand that comedians are cathartic for people and important, and that because we're funny, when we're sincere and authentic, that resonates very deeply and it's beautiful and good. I mean, I watch, I've seen podcasts, with comedians that were so impactful and meaningful to me, or just seeing them on stage get real for a second, not even do a joke and say something that really mattered. And you know what? Metallica got a lot of guff for writing a soft song on one of their albums.
Oh, yeah.
And then the idea, though, was you realize you have this soft, beautiful song, and it makes the next thing heavier.
Yeah.
It makes the next thing hit harder.
Yeah.
And then you realize the juxtaposition is beautiful and they go together.
Yeah.
And that's comedy and philosophy. The philosophy is hitting harder because of the juxtaposition, not because it's good or true or important. And so maybe comedians are like philosophers in popular culture, but the philosophers should be the philosophers. Read Meditations, I'm begging you.
Yeah.
Read Aquinas, I'm begging you. Pick up Scott Hahn.
Yeah. Seinfeld's great, but...
And honestly, one of the titans who should be very important, Father Gregory Pine.
Yeah.
Read and look at him talk. What an eloquent, beautiful person.
Yeah, he is.
I saw him and didn't say hi to him because I was too nervous. Yeah.
Well, we'll introduce you to him one day. Alex Witt has two questions, both of which are exciting. The first is, what impressive thing do you like to do in your free time?
Impressive.
Don't you work out really hard?
I work out really hard. I'm getting close to... I hope to bench 315 this year, which is a goal not a lot of people get to. I run quite a bit. I run ultra marathons when I can. I'm pretty strong. I'm like deadlifting like close to 500 right now, and I weigh like 200.
Wow.
So that's decent.
Very, very decent.
I skate. I'm pretty good at skating. I surf. I'm not a good surfer, but I'm brave, which is half of surfing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a decent shooter too. I'm doing a little 3-gun this year probably. So, yeah.
Well, here's the next cool question. What's the least impressive thing that you do?
Oh, the least
Or
impressive.
even the most embarrassing hobby you could admit to.
So I have a giant board game collection.
Yeah?
I love board games. The board games I play are like historical in nature and very complicated.
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
You would love my next door neighbor, Mike Welker. He teaches economics and math at the university.
Oh.
He's got more board games than any man should.
I have a room of board games.
Okay. Well, so does he.
I'd
You
like-
two would love each other. I wish you could stay longer. You got to come and visit us here in Steubenville.
Oh my,
We
come
would
get
love to have you.
baptized. I'm gonna be
let's-
hanging out for a while.
We're gonna make it happen.
So I have a lot of board games, and a lot of them are so complicated that I don't have friends who could or would dedicate the time to learn them. And even if they did, it wouldn't be fun to play against them until these
Yeah,
are games you have
yeah.
to think about while you're not playing to be good.
Wow, yeah.
And so I play board games by myself very often. I'll just play both sides just to see what's going to happen.
What's one of your favorite board games right
One of
now?
my favorite board games right now. That's a good question. It's called Conflict of Heroes. And it's a game derived from Advanced Squad Leader. Another game I really like. It's technically well known as the hardest game of all time. It's like a historical simulation of World War II, where like the front armor and the slope of a tank matters. Like
That's
this is
amazingly
a lot
detailed.
going on
Yeah.
here. Yeah. The morale of the troops of the squad taken from this battalion and this army at this time is taken into account as you're pushing pieces around. And yeah.
Well, this person says, not really a question, but I just want to say that I'll be praying for you. And
Oh.
thank you for being who you are and being open to our Lord, especially in such a public way. That was from Aiden McCoy. Thank you for being a local supporter, Aiden. But I wanted to ask you on that, like, do you think there's going to be any repercussions for
Yes.
you coming out of the closet here on my show?
Absolutely.
What will they be, do you suspect?
I am ready for them. This is you asked me and I jumped at the chance and I prayed on it a lot and I decided that my faith should be a part of my life, my public life, because authenticity is important. I can't even imagine that I'm not going to do comedy about my faith. And so, I think the repercussions will be significant, not all negative. I've had a lot of positivity. I've had a lot of people be really cool to me. I've had a lot of Christians come and be like, this is so beautiful, and be interested in my content. Mind you, if you're Christian and you're coming, you should know the body of my work is not all good
Right.
or positive, because I've lived a life and I was a very intense sinner, and I'm definitely changing that. And my content from here on out will be consumable by all Catholics everywhere forever. And that is a thing I am doing for sure. But the consequences are going to be like, I think a lot of my peers are going to be weird. I think I'm going to lose out on certain opportunities. I'm going to say no to things that I don't agree with. I'm going to say no to supporting things I don't want to support. And that's going to affect me. People are going to, random people who aren't my peers, like fans and stuff, are going to leave. And they're going to scold me. I think people already have attacked me for it. Not even being Catholic, because I have not really made it public that I'm being Catholic. This is definitely that, but I've here and there just talked about how I'm going to church and being open to God, and people have interpreted that as whatever they want, and some people have been very vile. So I'm gonna deal with that. There's gonna be a lot of atheists who are going to want to debate me, which I'm open to. I will crush you. And then there's there's gonna be people who are going to infer certain things I believe politically, because the church is true and I support the church, and and the church's teachings, and some of those aren't popular, and that is going to cause me grief. I had someone be like, someone who figured out I was going to be Catholic didn't send me a message. They made a post and they were like, I don't believe this guy. I don't trust anything this guy says. This guy's not becoming Catholic for real. This is fake. And I wanted to be like, yeah, that's the move in Hollywood. To go from being Jewish to Catholic in the progressive liberal Hollywood. That's exactly the move. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get out here, especially like, it's so silly.
Oh my gosh. How do you cope with that? Do you go through and read the comments, or do you make a decision not to?
I read a lot of the comments, because if I don't moderate some of my stuff like my Instagram, or not so much YouTube, but if I don't moderate Instagram and Facebook and I let people do hate speech, which they do, it will auto think I'm up to something and punish me. So you kind of have to moderate yourself. And so I do read a lot of Instagram messages and comments and Facebook stuff. I have pretty tough skin. Very rarely does something get to me. I have found someone did a joke recently about Jesus and Mary, and I have absorbed 1,000,001 jokes about Christianity. That's comedy. People are always low-hanging fruit. They said it, and I felt myself be like, I'm gonna kill you, like I'm gonna get up there. I'm gonna suplex you through a table. And I was like, oh, this is new for me.
We are so grateful and glad to have you on our side. I want to invite people to kind of like combat the negative comments that Shayne's going to get. If you want to offer him a word of encouragement or love in the comment section below, I'm sure he'd appreciate it.
I think I'm most worried about people I do care about and love, that I think mean very well and are kind, good people who are involved in communities or things that I haven't aligned with for a long time, but now that I publicly don't align with, and they are going to be disappointed and hurt and not understand why I feel the way I do, and I think that saddens me. But I love them, and I want the best for them, and God loves them, and I just hope that everything works out for them. And
Camillus asks, have you ever tried to contact Sensei Dan?
Sensei Dan, I have not. I've told a lot of jokes with people in my stories, and a lot of them have reached out to me. And what's funny is most of them have been like, I don't want you to publicly. I just want you to know I'm the guy, and that's very funny, and I'm happy for your success. And I've like tried to get dinner with one of them or talk to them and stuff. Dan has not reached out to me.
That's funny. I was listening to your excellent bit about the Florida man throwing the alligator through the Wendy's window, and my kids were loving it. And of course, I pulled it up on the phone and we read the actual news article.
Someone tried to put me in contact with him, and I was like, I'm okay.
I'm good.
I'm good on the alligator guy, actually. I'm super cool. If he wants to talk to me, I'll be gracious and talk to him, but I'm not going to like seek him out. I don't know. What do I say? So you did it. Like, I guess.
Kyle Whittington says, how, as a new convert, have you dealt with the confusion coming out of the Vatican and from Pope Francis? Has that bothered you?
No. Okay. No. I understand that it's there, and I understand as I began to convert, like I said, I'm a person who consumes and I know how to get good at something. It's my talent. My talent isn't comedy. My talent isn't skating. My talent isn't weightlifting or running or shooting or painting or any of the things I like to do. My talent is learning. I know how to learn. And so I mean, in my RCIA class, there's a lot of times where the director's like, is it? Are we doing it? And I'm like, yeah. I remember this part, and so, I know a lot. And, so I'm very aware of the controversy. I'm aware of who he is and what he's done. I'm aware of how many people love, Pope St. John Paul II, and how important he is, and how just one of the greatest of all time, and how important all that's going to be in the theology of the body and all these other things. And so leading up to Francis, I'm like, okay. And I see why people are frustrated. And I see how, before I started to convert, secular people call him the cool Pope. They're like, oh, the Pope who's like not bad. And I kind of don't even know. They don't know why they're saying that. That's just like a meme. And so I think that's positive. I think that may do things like make my conversion easier.
Yeah.
Our Pope is literally going to make my conversion easier. I believe that. And so there are good and beautiful things about him. He is our Pope.
Yeah.
And I submit to the Pope. That is a part of this, and I'm allowed to disagree with him, but I'm not worried about it. It doesn't stress me out. Good priests who believe and fight for the right thing are always going to exist. Good bishops who believe and fight for the right thing are always going to exist. And bad bishops and priests who do bad things are always going to exist. Why would that not apply to the Pope? Yeah. The Pope is going to make mistakes, as others have done, or do things to frustrate us or scare us. And at the end of the day, I'm Catholic. End of story.
Yeah.
So it doesn't affect me because I'm going to go to mass with you and weep one way or the other. You know,
brother. Javier says, has Shayne seen the tattoo that Father Mike has? And if so, what are his thoughts? He's referring to the traditional Jerusalem cross pilgrimage tattoo thing.
I want that tattoo. I literally want that tattoo. And now I'm like, great, the handsome priest has it. I'm in trouble. It's the most popular guy and he has it. But he's cool. I love his videos. They were important for me starting out. I think it's sick. In that video he made where he got it assuaged a lot of the fears I had about the church being weird about tattoos. And then where I live in Utah, most Catholic people are very Hispanic. And so there's just like these Hispanic guys with the sickest Christian Catholic tattoos, you know, just like this, just the coolest like tattoo of Christ on your back, you know, and I'm just like, yeah, dude. And I do want to masculinize Catholicism. I think that that's what men in Catholicism need. I believe that. I think that's what draws people to Islam. It's a very masculine religion. And I think that when our religions were at odds at one point, it was the two most masculine groups who had ever lived duking it out. I think there's something that captures all of our imaginations for all time because of that. The Knights Hospitaller, some of the most famous knights of all time, some of those deadly warriors ever to exist. We think about them in our modern day still now as being some of the toughest, craziest, most important warriors ever. They were the pinnacle of fighting people. Do you know how many brothers at one time were full brothers in the order? Less than 400. Less than 400 men created a story around their martial prowess so powerful that it resonates for all time. Don't you imagine there being thousands of them fighting?
Yeah.
Less than 400.
Wow.
That's just a small amount of Catholic men can, through the power of faith and strength and discipline, create a legend that transcends space and time and makes you feel as if they were 10,000s. That motivates me. That fires me up.
Yeah, a quick shout out to the men in Sydney. I was just in Australia preaching and met these amazing Maronite Catholic men who have inspired me and continue to every time I think of them. And this giant bearded bald-headed fella whose name I forget, I apologize, started praying the rosary once a month on the front of the steps of the cathedral in Sydney. The first day he set it up, it was pissing rain, and they all just knelt, all these men and their sons kneeling and praying the Holy Rosary, and they just do it. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's beautiful to see.
I pray the rosary in public on purpose. If I want to pray, I just pray. Yeah. I just kneel down on both knees and I hold my rosary and I pray my rosary at the airport in front of everybody.
Okay.
Get it.
Yeah.
Get out there. Pray in public. It's the right thing to do. That's not just a masculine thing, though. I do think as a man, it's a masculine thing.
I want to give a shout out to our Muslim friends. I really do. Especially I really do. Because my wife and I were just in Dallas for my in-laws for Christmas, and we stayed at a hotel for a little bit. Huge Muslim conference going on. And these men who commit themselves to praying the way they do 5 times a day, the way they fast, puts many Catholic men to shame. Yeah. So I think we got to look at them and we have to step up our game and commit and
Yeah, we need to do it. We just need to not make the mistake of doing it in a prideful way.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
You need to be, manliness is humble, a humble, quiet strength. Get on your knees and pray the rosary at the park. Yeah. Pray it whenever you want, whenever, like, to,
it's the competing verses, right, of Christ who says, go into your private room and pray.
Yeah,
right? But then he says, let your light shine before men so they might praise your Father in heaven. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right. I think that distinction is, am I doing this for vainglory?
Yes.
Am I doing this? And thankfully today, a lot of people won't think you're terrific for praying the rosary.
No, you're not going to win any favors.
Yeah, unless you're in Steubenville. So
I love it. I just think, and listen, it doesn't have to be ridiculous. Hold your rosary in your hand while you're sitting at the coffee and just pray a decade if you want. It just, when you feel it, don't allow you, be courageous in your faith. Yeah. I just think being courageous in anything you pursue, but if you're going to pursue something, pursue it with the fullness of your heart. It doesn't matter if it's comedy or skating or weightlifting or whatever. When I weightlift, my style of weightlifting, I like to lift every set to failure.
Okay.
So I choose the weight, I choose the amount of reps I'm aiming for, and I'm going to hit them. But if I go over, I will continue until I physically can't lift the bar. Yeah. And I think that we should apply that to things like faith. I think that praying the rosary and I think it's tough. I think it's cool, you know. I can't remember. Thursday was telling me a story about a quarterback, and they're like, "How did you accomplish all this?" Jesus. Yeah, buddy, let's go. Tell them. You know, I think that's tough. So I think spiritual warfare is something that we should focus on.
Yes.
That, as someone who lived a life of violence, can I just say, spiritual warfare, the concept of it and being a better person and discipline and faith fires me up so much and makes me want to be a better Catholic and so proud of my faith. I haven't even been baptized and I'm like, get me to, I just want the Pope to ask me to fight someone. You know what I mean? Like, I wish there was a military order. That's how I feel. And I think that there's something bad about that. And I shouldn't do that as a result. Just like how if someone wants to be an exorcist, that's the person you never let do it. Right. But like, so maybe I shouldn't do it, but the will is there. Energy. The will is there, and I want that for myself. And spiritual warfare is interesting because as I realized, okay, I don't want to sin anymore, and I have all these rules, and I understand what's expected of me, and what is beautiful and good, and what is unholy, and now I have to live that. And to live that is difficult. Every day you're tempted. The devil is real. When I did convert, I started to have wild nightmares. Yeah, crazy nightmares of like where I would women would be like asking me to sleep with them, and then they would be like maggots would be coming out of their like stuff that I was like, I need to put my cross back on to go back to sleep. Yeah, it was weird. And I don't mean to receive what you're saying with nonchalance because I know I've had the exact same thing. It's something that I then learned. It's like a common. I'm like, okay, because one of my friends asked me once, and I'm getting way derailed. I'll be really quick and get back to spiritual warfare. One of my friends asked me once. He goes, "I want to see a ghost. I want to be possessed by a demon. Bring it on. Where are you at?" Because he's like so secular, such an atheist. And I was like, why would the devil waste his time on you? Yeah, you're lost. He has you already. You're lost. And then I came to that realization as I began to find my faith. I go, the devil is real in my life and affecting me in a tangible way. And so spiritual warfare is how you go to war with Satan. And the thing that's interesting about that is I lived a life of violence. I've participated in a lot of organized violence and fighting. There's a lot of randomness that you have to account for. You could be the greatest warrior of all time and you didn't account for the step that you tripped on, that you fell, and then you were killed or hurt or whatever. Spiritual warfare, there is no random component. It is you versus everything else. It is you, your will, your faith in God and Christ, and all the strength you can muster, unaffected by random chance, against sin and unholiness. And there's something so appealing and interesting and beautiful about that it's like take up your cross, no random elements. It's just you versus him. And I just think that's really beautiful and interesting.
Quote from C.S. Lewis, the idea of the knight, the Christian in arms for the defense of a good cause, is one of the great Christian ideas. War is a dreadful thing, and I can respect an honest pacifist, though I think he is entirely mistaken. What I cannot understand is this sort of semi-pacifism you get nowadays, which gives people the idea that though you have to fight, you ought to do it with a long face and as if you were ashamed of it. It is that feeling that robs lots of magnificent young Christians in the service of something they have a right to, something which is the natural accompaniment of courage, a kind of gaiety and wholeheartedness.
Oh, dude, C.S. Lewis has some bangers.
Yeah, I freaking love him.
Lion and the Witch in the Wardrobe didn't do a lot for me. Yeah, I've been reading a lot of his other writings and things he said, and I'm like, wow.
Have you read his essay or his sermon, Men Without Chests?
No, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, best friends with Tolkien, and I'm like, there's something to this. I gotta. Yeah. But anyway, that's a whole. We just wanted a whole thing about masculinization and just like being courageous in your faith. I think it applies to women. I think it's womanly too to be courageous in your faith. Of course, to be. Yeah. I just think it's good. I know that I'm like a convert, and so it's like, oh, look at this guy, 6 months of mass or whatever, says he's whatever, but like, I do very much believe these things.
Yeah, and everything you're saying, I agree with.
Yeah.
You think of Teresa of Avila. I don't believe she ever studied a day of theology in a seminary or rather a university setting or anything like that, and yet she knew more than most of the priests. So we have to be humble as we say these things. But I thought it would be super cool if the two of us prayed the St. Michael the Archangel prayer to wrap that up. I've got it here.
Yes.
So we can pray it together. But is there anything else we want to touch on before we do that? I mean, is there a place? I mean, I appreciate what you said, like, and people should realize that if people go look up a lot of your stuff, they're probably going to find things that might offend them.
Maybe,
But to give you some grace and realize that, well, if there's stuff that people looked up in my life, it'll offend me too. So it's not like
that's the unfortunateness of being very public.
Yeah,
is especially as a comedian, you're incentivized to share all your minor thoughts, and many of our minor thoughts are like awful. And so then I'm like, oh well, this is silly, and then like it's just like a lot of hedonism and things that I just don't agree with now. Yeah. So I also think that I'm a comedian, and there are things that are offensive that I think are funny. Yes, and that's okay.
Yes.
And there are things that are crass, and I think they're funny.
Yes.
And maybe just because I think they're funny doesn't mean I need to make them a part of my life or seek them out. But if you find something funny and something that you don't agree with, that's a blessing. Mm-hmm. Laughter is, I think it's really close to, pure joy is God. So laughter is a gift. It's a release. It's something to like take the edge off, to make, catharsis and to tragedy. When you laugh, it just makes things so much better. Mm-hmm. I just, my friend has this story about how he went to his grandmother's funeral and everyone's really sad, and his dad leans over to him at their open casket, and his dad goes, "Do you want to see a dead body?" And like that moment between them, that's so funny. The joke and that serious space is like, yeah, that's beautiful. That's what we need to do. Is it offensive? Is it terrible?
Well, it's funny.
Maybe,
but you came to my talk at Seek, and one of the lines that always seems to get a lot of laughter, I was trying to be a little snarky, is when I said like something to the effect of like, all of us are going to die, and then I look around, I'm like, and some of you sooner than others by the look of you. People love that. They love that line.
It got me.
Yeah,
it was a good one. It got an out loud laugh out of me. It's a good joke. Some of you sooner than.
I do want to say that I think I found a funny stand-up female comedian.
Yes, let's go.
I have friends who be excited to hear it. Yeah. But then I watched more of her, and I was trying to be honest to myself, not just like, because it's not a hill I'm willing to die on. I'm open to a woman being a funny stand-up. I just haven't yet. But this woman is the closest I've seen, and I just think she's delightful. I like her a lot. Okay. Can I say her name? I know you know.
Absolutely.
Leanne
Morgan.
She's very funny.
I know her in real life.
Yeah.
She's a beautiful, truly wonderful
She's
woman.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. Beautiful, I think, in her entirety. Just what a great person.
But I honestly think that like women I love and respect would find her a lot funnier than I, as a middle-aged dude, do.
Here's the thing. Good comedy is authentic.
Yeah.
Female comedians who are famous are being authentic or successful. I shouldn't say famous. I'm not famous, but so they're successful, which means they're authentic. If they're authentic, a lot of their stuff is autobiographical. The female experience is just probably so far away from what you enjoy.
That's okay. So do you think there's a funny female stand-up comic?
I think there are funny female stand-up comics.
And who do you like the most? Who would you say?
A lot of the ones I like aren't famous, and they're also wildly crass.
Well, who would you take like your mum to see, or who would you take Mother Natalia to see that you're like, oh, she's good, you like her?
Mother Natalia, I don't know what I would I don't know where I would take her. That gives me anxiety.
I would take her to a crass comedy bar just so she could be offended and I could pummel somebody to death for her. And then give them their broken body, her as a present. You're welcome.
Mother Natalia is such a good. I don't even know. I would just have to just the whole time I'd be like, I'll do anything for you. What do you need? The Taylor Tomlinson is one I'd probably take my mom to.
I agree that she can be funny. Yeah.
She
can also be extremely crass, which is so unfortunate.
Because
I was trying to be honest about the Leanne thing, right? Not always good, Because I watched her, because I watched her Netflix special, and I did find her. Let me say this: I found her very likable.
Yeah.
Like if my wife took me to this, I would be so honored. She seems beautiful, but I didn't ever go. I went.
Oh yeah.
There was exhale out of the nostrils. So I still don't think I could say that I found a very. I don't think I could say I have found a female stand-up comic that I find funny, but I think I can say I have now found a female stand-up comic that is funny and that I think my mum and other women would really like. And that would be very insulting to her, and I hope she never hears me say that.
Okay, yeah. I don't think she'd find it insulting. I think she'd be like, "Yeah, darling, I'm great. I know
Her
it. You
accent
don't.
is
I don't
beautiful.
need you.
I
Yeah,
don't need you. Who the hell are you?
yeah.
I'm on Netflix.
Yeah, she's good. There's a comic I'm trying to think of, and she's so important, and she's one of the OG female comedians who's so amazing. By the way, they hate to be a female comimic. When you say female comic, because they're just comedians, but people do love to separate them, and it is hard not to, especially for us, because we're so interested in comedy for men. Because also you grow up here's another reason we don't like it and women love female comedians is because as a man, all the funniest stuff that ever happened to you was you and your pals. There's a certain very insular experience just between the boys. That's right. That's so fun and funny. You grew up around funny people. Every man in the world who grew up around funny people. Not every woman did, I don't think. And if not, that just goes to show how much my experience isn't theirs. I'm so far away from it. So it's just like, they're just cross wires, So I can't remember this woman's name, and she's so important. She's literally like a Norm Macdonald, and I'm just forgetting her name. I'll think of it as we're doing other stuff.
Well, let me Joan someone.
No,
is that he's saying?
Oh no! It starts with an M.
Well, let me ask you this, because you just said you're not famous. Okay, then what is that? I mean, what does that mean then? And when would you be famous?
Do you consider yourself famous?
I consider myself famous among Catholics.
See, that's my thing.
But I don't mean that in a braggy way. Just like if I'm in a huge place with a lot of Catholics, I'm going to be recognized. That doesn't mean I'm good. It doesn't mean I'm virtuous. I mean any of that. It just means I'm recognizable. Now, I wouldn't consider myself famous. Although I will say, the last several times I've been to the airport, wherever I have random people stopping me.
You're getting there,
and that's because of YouTube. That's because of the exposure of YouTube.
Yeah.
Right? So let me ask you this: if Netflix came to you and asked for a special, would you do it? And would you say you're famous then? I mean, I guess it's not. It's kind of like when somebody says, "Would you say you're a hero?" No. As soon as you say you're a hero, you'd suck.
It's funny because I feel like, it's one of those things like saying you're funny or brave. It's like saying you're funny or brave. If you have to say it, you aren't. Yeah. It's not my decision. It's your decision.
I see.
And so fame feels like that to me.
Yes.
I don't get to decide if I'm famous. You do. And not only that, I choose not to believe it. I think that if you're popular enough that it would cause a ruckus to go to Disneyland or on a plane, you're famous.
Oh, okay. That's the litmus test.
I guess. I don't know.
Because I'm looking at your YouTube views. You've got like millions of views. I'm like, I think you're probably famous.
Yeah, I mean, I get stopped a lot. Yeah, people. I'm recognizable.
You're with the tats too, dude.
Yeah, I do it. I grew my hair out for a while.
Yeah, I saw that.
And just for fun, COVID happened, and I was like, I got to bleep that. I'm sorry, but
no, you don't. No.
Oh, really? No. Oh, sometimes some people say YouTube's
now willing to acknowledge that COVID happened. Okay. Thankfully, yeah.
So I grew my hair out just because I'd never gotten to grow it long, and I wanted to see what it was like. Yeah. And it was cool, and I liked it, but I like it cut. So, but I recognized less with long hair. If I wear it down, people would kind of be like, "Are you?" They would people would be like, "You look a lot like a comic I know."
And what would you say?
I would be like, "Oh, that's
Norm
crazy."
Macdonald?
I was like, "What's his name? I'll look him up." And usually they would figure it out by the time we were done having the conversation. But yeah, now that I have my hair cut again, though, people are on it. Yeah, on it.
So when are you working towards a new special? And
I am.
When is that going to?
I'm going to film one this year. Okay. So I'll be filming one. You're going to be there. It's going to be awesome.
If I'm in America, I mean, we're going to Austria for several months.
It'll be after that.
Okay.
It'll be after that.
I would be honored. Please give me plenty of time. I'd love to take my wife.
It'll be so good.
I'd be honored. Yeah.
I know. I'm trying to go to Rome with you.
Oh, we'd love that.
Because there's a part of that where you're going to go to Rome. So I really want to go. Yeah. But yeah. So I'll be filming one this year for sure. Who knows? Maybe it'll have some stuff. I think I could make my conversion story funny. And I think that well, I mean, there is something about that could be important. I think it would be interesting I think that there's an interesting challenge there to do comedy about being converted to Catholicism that is funny and relatable to all people. Yeah. That's a challenge that I'm almost like, it's almost too challenging not to try.
I think it's like you want to make fun of your faith the way you might make fun of your wife. What I mean by that is you want to be playful and endearing.
Yes.
You can poke fun of each other in a way that builds the other up. but you never want to talk about the faith in a way that would denigrate her, in the way you would never want to tell a joke that would make your wife embarrassed or ashamed.
Exactly. The idea would be to make light of myself and the absurdity of my situation and the absurdity of faith. And I think that there is actually something very powerful about admitting to secular people, faith is absurd. This is absurd. All of this is very funny. This is crazy. God made us. He loves us. We have a purpose on this life. The rock is hurtling through space. This is what, to admit that this isn't insane.
Or to say, if I could tell young Shayne, here's what you're going to be believing one day.
Exactly.
Well, another thing you could do, which would be really good, is the hard rock thing. I mean, that whole thing about a church made of skulls and bones.
Yeah.
That's shocking.
I'm definitely going to get in there.
Another thing that's funny is these relics. I mean, the Catholics talk a lot about respecting the body. When you're dead, they throw you in the chipper. There's something there. Come on. There's got to be something there.
Oh, man. But yeah, I think that's a cool challenge. I think if I can make being in a gang relatable to people, I think that I can make faith relatable.
Which is just a cooler gang.
Yeah. It
Catholicism.
truly is the gang.
The gang. Join us. What do you think? Can we pray this together? This is a beautiful prayer. And we invite everyone to pray it with us. And this, you got it? All right. And then we'll wrap up. God bless everybody. Thank you for being here. Please subscribe to help the channel out. Please send Shayne some love below by commenting. And thank you so much for being here. Yeah. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls.
Amen. Saint Therese of Lisieux, pray for us. And Thomas Aquinas, pray for us. And Joan of Arc, pray for us. Amen.